And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It's a manic Monday. It is Monday, May 6, 2013. This is a live broadcast if you're listening to this between the hours of 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Folks, I'm Doug Hagmann. I'm the co-host along with my son, Joe Hagmann. We're both in studio together. We are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, and you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased, uncensored news and analysis. News that you need to know in these perilous times. You're listening to the only show where the news is presented to you in 3D. We look beyond the headlines and the bylines, and we bring you the news behind the news. In fact, we bring you tomorrow's news today. Many times we often do that. Folks, we broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Our home base on the internet is HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. And folks, I've gotten a number of emails about this. We are not affiliated with Homeland Security. It was just a good name, I thought, for a URL, for a website in 2002, I believe it was, when I picked up the domain. It was Earth 3 or whatever it was. We're not affiliated with any government website or any government agency. We're also simulcast, by the way, by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. Tune in to the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com as an alternative to Blog Talk Radio. That's the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. In fact, there you will find us crisp, clean, clear, the sound, compliments of the hardest working man I know, Troy, the man behind the Christians United Broadcasting Network. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. I want to thank new listeners in Grand Island and North Platte, I believe it is, Nebraska. Welcome to the show. Hays, Kansas. And I'd also like to welcome individuals listening now in Idaho Falls and Pocatello, Idaho. We're hearing from people in Great Falls, Montana. We've heard some people in, get this, Moose Jaw, that is in Canada, not too far, I believe, from Calgary. Want to say welcome to you. Also, listeners in Panama and all across the world through the wonders of the internet. We'll be taking your calls during the third and final hour of the show. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us, for your belief and trust in us as we walk through this minefield of current events together. Joe, welcome today. It's a great day to be alive.
Yes, it is, and very happy to be here. Had a great weekend, and there's a lot of things we need to get into, and a lot of things I need to read as far as news articles, because I gathered a lot of news, and I didn't have time to read all the information, but there is a lot going on many fronts. We have World War III looming. We do. New cyber attacks being threatened against us. According to the Washington Times, they're saying jihadists and hackers are teaming up to launch cyber attacks on the U.S. We have pastors being raided by the Department of Homeland Security, Benghazi whistleblowers making waves in the news, Obama vowing to keep gun control, saying this is just the first round, what was already done, DHS buying more bullets, and I don't know, probably some sinkholes, earthquakes, whatever else you can think of. I mean, this is an all-point. We've talked about this a lot, how the news has transformed to a day's news today was a week's news last year, where that was a month's news a year before.
That's right.
It's just increasing to a level that is mind-boggling if you let it get to you, but...
Well, and that's it. We're here to help you I believe we're here to help you focus on what's important, certainly through the biblical prism, through the prism of the scripture, and through discernment. We're not the end all of news, but we try to distill it for you in digestible portions where you can take and you can see what's important, and you can weigh it against whatever else you have heard, and also we attempt to educate and as well as enlighten you with our broadcast. Now, before we get started on the program tonight, we've been getting so many emails about God's judgment on this country, on America. And I've seen this posted on numerous websites. And let me just take a few minutes here before we get into the meat of the program as an introduction. And that introduction being a common question, and I will just form it into a general question. Basically, do you think that someday God will judge America for its sins? Now, we've all asked that question. We've all asked that question to our guests like Nathan Leal and, of course, Steve Quayle, Pastor David Langford. And we've heard Rick Wiles talk about it. We've heard other ministers and pastors talk about it. And what everyone's trying to do, I think, is we're trying to look into the future to see what might be on America's horizon. Some people, for different reasons, they're going to try to outrun with God's judgment, if you will.
When obsessed with the details that, they are important, but we know we can never know. Even the Bible tells us we'll never know when the Lord comes back.
Well,
nobody will know.
Really, we don't need to pry too heavily into the future, because we do know that, of course, God will judge America for her sins. It's as simple as that. The judgments for our sins, in fact, are already happening. When it comes to the consequences for our sins, the future is today. It's already begun, folks. We usually think that God's judgment is most clearly seen, in wars and natural disasters or terrorist attacks. But there is another form of judgment that's even more evident. It's simply the accumulated consequences of our sins. Now think about this. What do these kinds of judgments look like? How do they manifest themselves? Well, one thing, and I thought about this, and I heard this, and I read about this, and I researched this, and one thing that I found is this. Is there not the destruction of our families right now, right before our very eyes? If you're listening to this and you've got a cousin, a sister, a brother, a father, a mother, whatever, and you sit at the dinner table, and there's this massive chasm of ideology between the two of you. Think about this. We must realize that all sin has immediate consequences. In the words of Ezekiel, the soul who sins shall die. That's Ezekiel 18:20. You see, Adam and Eve experienced some immediate judgments because of their disobedience, but it is the long-term consequences that have really essentially boomeranged throughout these many centuries. When God judges a nation, these natural immediate judgments are intensified, and we can see the consequences of our sin more clearly. For example, immorality, like all sin, has immediate consequences, but it also has future consequences. And when these accumulate, and these are cumulative, by the way, we can see the judgments on individuals as well as on our nation. Now, nowhere is this more clearly seen by all of us, by you listeners, than in the families of America. This is what we've been talking about so many times during our program. One judgment of a nation's ongoing sins is that the family structure fractures. There's a judgment Israel experienced because they turned away from God to serve idols. And I got to tell you, it's a pretty gruesome description. So just be warned. It can be found in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 53 through 55. Just be warned. It's a little bit gruesome. It reads as follows: "And you shall eat the fruit of your womb, and the flesh of your sons and daughters, whom the Lord your God has given you, in the siege and in the distress with which your enemies shall distress you. The man who is the most tender and refined among you will begrudge food to his brother, to the wife he embraces, and to the last of his children whom he has left, so that he will not give to any of them any of the flesh of his children whom he is eating, because he has nothing else left in the siege and in the distress with which your enemy shall distress you in all your towns." Wow. Now, from here, the warnings continue in their severity, and really some heartbreaking descriptions. The same description quoted in Deuteronomy is then applied to the mother, who also shall eat her offspring. If this distresses you, folks, I can't apologize. I'm not going to apologize. The warning ends: "Your life shall hang in doubt before you. Night and day you shall be in dread and have no assurances for your life. In the morning you shall say, if it were only evening. And at the evening you shall say, if it were only morning, because of the dread that your heart shall feel and the sights that your eyes shall see." Once again, Deuteronomy, and this is in 28 verses 66 through 67. Both times when the Israelites were forced to leave their homes to go to a foreign land to serve their enemies, these warnings were fulfilled. Many homes were torn into two. In some cases, a few family members were killed and the rest had to fend for themselves. Other times, some family members died during these long treks, and starvation and war devastated the population. And sorrow of the people was just absolutely beyond anyone's comprehension. Of course, these prophecies are context specific. Israel was warned that she would be carried off to serve a pagan nation as a judgment for idolatry. Now, when judgment came, the consequences were quick, following a war of attrition. But for us, the consequences just might be gradual, extending over time to families. And I think that's true, because that's what we're seeing now. So you see, these predictions stand as an example of how the sins of parents can affect the next generation. Don't forget, in the Ten Commandments, God warned, "I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments." That reference can be found in Exodus 20, verses 5 and 6. So while we're not refugees eating our offspring right now, look, God is judging our families just the same. He's judging us for our immorality and divorce, and through the breakup of the family. 20 million children live without a father in the home, and therefore cope with all the devastating emotional and developmental consequences. We see people with children from broken homes, from parents of homosexual couples.
More children are born out with parents who are divorced or never married than are.
Exactly. We look at everything and we see mothers weeping for their children and children weeping for their fathers. God has said to America, you have accepted divorce, you've accepted homosexuality, you've accepted pre-birth abortions, you've accepted pornography, you've glamorized it, you've raised a generation who spend their time watching MTV, and the seeds of God's judgment are very plain to see, folks. And, it's amazing to think, too, one out of... these stats are staggering. 1 in every 100 adult Americans is now in prison, which makes for 2.3 million adults behind bars. You know, the Michael Singletary, the retired Hall of Fame linebacker for the Chicago Bears, gives his testimony in prisons and has given his testimony in prisons. He says he asked the prisoners, how many of you had a warm relationship with your father? He recently reported that he's still waiting for the first hand to be raised. That should tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. See, God's judgment of the sins of the fathers is being visited upon the children, and the effects will be felt for generations to come. And this is precisely what God predicts in the last verse of the Old Testament, and that can be found in Malachi chapter 4, verse 6. But that's what we've been getting. We've been getting this, well, are we under judgment? Of course. And one more thing before we get into the news. You know, Abraham Lincoln, people often talk about his wisdom and about him being one of the most admired presidents. I'm not talking about the current Abraham Lincoln. You know, I'm talking about the original Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was asked one time whether God was on his side. And you know what he said? He said, I don't care whether God is on my side. Wow. But here's what he said. He said, I don't care whether God is on my side. The important question is whether I am on God's side, for God is always right. Yes, that's the important question. Are we on God's side? See, we've learned that sometimes we're asking the wrong questions. And it's important for us to not worry if God is on our side, but worry if we're on God's side.
That's so right.
You know, and just keep that as the context for the program tonight.
Jesus said this, how can you believe, which receive honor from one another, and seek not the honor that cometh from God only? That's John chapter 5, verse 44. Also, he says, my doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. If any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine, whether it be of God, or whether I speak of myself. He that speaketh of himself seeketh his own glory, but he that seeketh his glory that sent him, the same is true, and no unrighteousness is in him. But what he is, throughout John, I was reading John this weekend, and I haven't read John in a while, and I kind of got a whole different outlook of this book from the last time I read it. I mean, the Lord was so confused, and not confused, but marveled at the Pharisees. He basically said, do you not understand what I'm saying? Do you not understand the words that I am speaking to you? How is it you do not hear what I'm saying to you? And if you read John, you'll understand, at least up until John chapter 10, I think I got to, or 11. But in there, he's arguing, the Pharisees are always trying to find something. And he's explaining to them. And they just don't understand. I mean, it's like there was a veil of deception there. And I think that is there today. I think I know we're in a huge deception today. The title of the show today is Prophecy Unfolding, or is this all a coincidence? When somebody 3,000 years ago, a prophet, wrote Damascus would be a ruinous heap, how's that looking today? When it talked us about in the end of Daniel that Egypt and Libya would be overthrown. Has that happened yet? If Israel was scattered in 70 AD, it says also in the Bible, the generation that sees Israel regathered in the Promised Land will be the generation that sees these things come to an end. The Bible is alive, and it is unfolding before our eyes. And I put in the title, is it all, or is it a coincidence? Just to say that all these people who say, this is just some fairy tale and Jesus was never real or he wasn't the Lord. This book is the truth, whether past, present, or future, and it always will be.
You know what, Joe? I was amazed as I watched in real time. And folks, we've got an announcement we're going to be breaking here sometime during the program. I don't know when. We really haven't. It's not a teaser to get you to stay throughout the program, but we're gonna talk about something that we're going to be doing here that's going to affect the way things are operating. But before we get into that, I was amazed because I was watching the news coverage of the airstrikes unfold. Now, Israeli warplanes struck, and I'm sure, folks, you were watching this or you had heard about this, unless you're living under a rock. Israeli warplanes struck areas in and around Damascus early Sunday morning, and that set off a series of explosions as they targeted a shipment of these very highly accurate Iranian-made guided missiles. Now, these missiles are extremely precise that they hit the factory that they hit, the missile payload that they hit. And if you watch the video, and you can find it, it's amateur video on the internet, you can find it. If you watch it, you can see the devastation caused by the explosion from the missiles themselves. But a couple of things. First of all, this is the second such attack in 3 days, and the third that took place in this year. Now, the media is attempting to portray this attack or this missile, attack, or this Israeli attack on this missile depot, warehouse, storage area, whatever you want to call it, as like basically, kind of a one-off situation, isolated incident. Go ahead.
No, you go finish.
Oh, okay. I want to know, as you were watching this, perhaps Sunday, or perhaps depending on where you live or where you hear this broadcast, whenever you were watching this, did the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end? Have we not been talking? Have we not said on this very program? Have we not spent hours on this very program talking and saying World War III has begun, and World War III will not start in Iran, but in Syria. And when those missiles struck the other missiles, when the Israeli warplane struck the missile depot in Damascus, in and around Damascus, did it not remind you of our words from this program? Is this not, I mean, it's not that we're prophets or we're far from that, but we
anything
but
but
we
that.
Yeah, but we've got good sources who are telling us this is the game plan for war. You see, World War III has already started. You just did not get the memo, folks. It's already started. And the build-up to World War III, if you study World War II, even World War I to a lesser extent historically, from a historical context, but study World War II, study the run-up of America's involvement into World War II. It was a series of events. Think of it like walking up a staircase to the top of, the Washington Monument. No, of a tall skyscraper. You'll walk up a set of stairs, and then there's a landing, a plateau of sorts. Then you walk up more stairs and another plateau. You see, this is how the build-up toward World War III is going to be. The stairs are the escalation, and then the landing is the plateau, the semblance of quiet for a while, and then you hit some more stairs. There's an escalation, and then another plateau. But with each plateau, unlike a staircase in a high-rise, each plateau gets wider and wider and wider, and with each staircase it gets steeper and more direct, more much more dire. This is where we're at. This is part of World War III. We're fighting by proxy. And I had written an article back in December of 2008 about the United States turning against Israel. And people laughed, and they called me a fool, a conspiracy kook. And even today, when we say that America is going to turn against her only ally in the Middle East, Israel, progressives, especially progressives, will say, no, that's not going to be the case. Well, that will be the case because, you see, to keep peace in the region, NATO, of course, and America will, in fact, put an air cap over Syria, ostensibly to keep the peace. And what is that going to do then to Israel when they cannot destroy the rockets, the very rockets that were blown up this weekend, destined for Hezbollah? You see, that's where they were destined, and this is going to be an incredible situation. And yes, that will essentially pit America against Israel. But go ahead.
I have an audio whenever you want to play it, titled Arab League Slams Israel, Syria Strike. UK calls to lift rebel arms embargo. That is from Russia Today.
I think it would be appropriate right now to do it.
We also have updates from the UN on the source of the alleged usage of chemical weapons, too. We'll get into that after this
all
audio.
part of it.
Egypt has condemned the Israeli airstrikes on Syria, with the Arab League also demanding action from the UN Security Council. So the League said there has been a dangerous violation of an Arab state's sovereignty there. The Article 2 of the United Nations Charter bans the use of force against the territorial integrity of any state. And let's now see what's the international reaction to all this. To get the latest from the US and the UK, we're now joined live by RT's Gena Chichikan in Washington and Polly Boyko in London. Very nice to see you both. So Polly, let's turn to you first. What has the government said in response to these latest Israeli strikes?
Well, the UK Foreign Secretary has said that this latest Israeli airstrike is making the case stronger for lifting the EU arms embargo on the Syrian opposition. According to William Hague, this recent escalation of the conflict shows that there's a real risk that the violence could spread outside of Syria and into the wider Middle East. Of course, this isn't the first time that the UK has called for an end to this EU arms embargo. In fact, it's become somewhat of a regular occurrence. This is just the latest reason that they're citing for providing extra assistance to the Syrian opposition. And we know that Germany hasn't been keen to provide extra weapons, to provide weapons to the Syrian opposition. We also know that the United Nations have big reservations about it. They say that flooding the region can only create more violence. And of course, many international observers have been keen to point out that arming the Syrian rebels could have some very dangerous consequences for the wider region and for Israel, of course, as well. A lot of people are still very wary of what took place in Libya, the Libyan scenario, when weapons flooded out from Muammar Gaddafi's army and into Mali and Algeria, into neighboring countries. There's still a lot of problems to do with that. So it's a lot of countries are very fearful about making that mistake again, but a very contradictory statement we've seen from the UK foreign minister, the one that could in fact create more problems rather than solving the ones that we've got already. So this EU arms embargo comes up for renewal on the 31st of May. We're going to be watching very closely what's going to happen with it and whether Britain will finally get its way in providing weapons to the Syrian opposition.
Gaia, to you now. Are there any indicators that the U.S. knew about Israel's attacks in advance?
Well, the U.S. and Israel, according to both governments, work very closely in terms of intelligence gathering, so it is difficult to believe that Washington didn't know anything about Israel's plans to bomb Damascus. The question that is very much unclear at this point is whether the strikes were really about Hezbollah or whether it was an intervention into the civil war in Syria. The warplanes hit.
You know, I think perhaps the most important part of that came at the end. Did we know? And was this an intervention into the war in Syria already going on? You know,
Did we know? I saw an article where they denied
of course.
knowing.
Of course. But let's just explain the Fatah rockets, the Fatah missiles, I should say, the Fatah 110s, the Conqueror, they're called in Farsi. It is a short-range ballistic missile that is developed by Iran, first put into service in 2002. The Iranian Islamic Republic unveiled an upgraded version last year that improved the weapon's accuracy and increased its range to just under 200 miles or 300 kilometers, depending on the area of the world you can relate. It's a solid fuel missile that could strike with pinpoint precision, making it the most accurate weapon of its kind in Iran's arsenal. Now, what's this all about? I've gotten emails saying, when are you going to write about this? Well, I've got an article that will be coming out about this. I've been on contact with my military and intelligence sources, both Christians, God-fearing Christians, both on our side, that is, or both on the side of God, that is. And the strike was necessary. It had to be done because it was kind of like the last chance for Israel to take these missiles out. Now, what are they doing in Syria? Well, folks, what we're dealing with here, and I'm just going to give a very short explanation.
I mean, Egypt, Syria, all these countries that are in internal turmoil. Iraq now is starting a civil war, or is in a civil war. They all border or are around Israel. That chaos can spill over in so fast.
That's right.
There are also other strategic reasons, and all of what Israel's actions might not be for good. Most governments don't do things for good. They could be doing it for a lot of reasons. There could be many birds killed with this one stone.
Right, and I've been taken to task for and called a Zionist, and and of course all the anti-Semitism that surrounds that. But the bottom line is this: there's a proxy war going on, and the proxy war is really being fought. If you can imagine, and I don't know how many people have ever attempted to play three-dimensional chess, the three chess boards. Look, I can barely function on one level of chess with any degree of efficiency, but there's a three-dimensional chess game brewing here. And on one level, you've got a proxy war between North Korea, or aligning, or between North Korea, Japan, and China. And then on the second level, you got the entirety of the Middle East. So let me give those two levels again: the North Korea, Japan, and China, and then of course the second level would be the Middle East. But the people miss the bottom layer. If you want to say something, if you want to interject.
No, I was just going to say this is very complex.
Complex.
I mean, we have proxies. Al Qaeda, for example, is a proxy of the United States. Whether you like it or not, or believe it or not, it's fact.
It takes your breath away to think that we are actually funding the very elements who attacked us on 9/11, and we're helping the very elements who attacked us on 9/11.
We funded them before 9/11,
right,
and we never stopped.
And people think of that. Well, that's just baloney. That's a conspiracy theory, and that's just not right. Well, no, it's correct if you look at verified history. Yeah, of course they admit it. They have to admit it.
Go on YouTube and search Brzezinski funding bin Laden. You'll see pictures, and you can find the documents. So.
But see, people can rationalize that whole idea, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and
Right.
and that of course is a fluid, a very dynamic situation that can change. So today the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and then tomorrow that same friend becomes an enemy and the dynamic changes. This is what we're seeing this alignment of this three-dimensional chessboard. But see, the very bottom chessboard that holds the all three, or that holds the game up, I should say, or that's really braces, or is the actual architecture of this game, is something that is virtually untouched in terms of discussion, virtually ignored by others. No one gives it any quarter or time. But that is the currency war, the economic battles being fought, the international bankers that are actually moving the chess pieces. That's where this war is being, well, that's the architecture of this coming third world war. It is that level, or those players, the bankers, the international bankers, the 12 or 13 of the richest families that you don't hear. They're not listed on Forbes or Fortune or whatever list. You're not going to find their names on any list. They're this shadow cabal chess players, and they are the ones that are moving the pieces. And of course, they are the ones that are funding both sides of the conflict. They are the ones that are bringing in World War III. They are the ones that are going to destroy the economy of the United States. And a very real threat to this nation is the destruction of our currency, the U.S. dollar.
This might be one of the first times I ever do this. I'm going to correct you. You said they are going to. No, they already have.
So actually, that's not a correction. That's a very that's good. You're right. They already have, to the extent that what was once our America has changed, folks. America has changed. We can feel it. America is no longer once the country that we had. We're not going to be able to walk this back. We're not going to be able to go back to Mayberry 1959, although we'd like to. The thing is,
I don't know what even that looks like. I mean, really.
Well,
I was born into the world was changing so fast by the time you don't really remember much before you're 15. I mean,
so you
do remember, but what I'm saying is you don't start to understand. You don't really until you turn an adult and you mature. So ever since I've been able to really think and comprehend and understand, things have been completely wrong, and I've known that. I mean, any person with some common sense can tell that things are wrong, and if you can't, then you don't know what right and wrong. I mean, do you not know what right is? What is good?
Well, exactly.
And then if you do, why are you quiet? Why are you staying silent while you see all these evils being committed across all spectrums of all issues?
Well, to give you a little idea of what my next column is going to be, what my next report is going to be, I'll just break it right here on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report live this 6th day of May 2013. And again, this is a live broadcast. You know, it was during the darkest hours of last Sunday morning. It was during the time that exists when sunrise seems so distant, and the stillness of the night that keeps most of humanity in the Western Hemisphere in a deep slumber. It was then I began to contemplate just how to report the complexities behind the recent bombings near Damascus of the missile storage facilities and the missiles themselves by Israel. Looking at this on the television, seeing this happen, and then going to the media. See, the media already had their talking points very well refined. preparing to hold captive their audience by asserting that the strikes took place in the readily accepted historical context of a limited Israeli action against their regional Arab enemy protagonists. It was a one-off event of sorts, a very short, sharp, precise operation with a beginning and an end, all in a very tidy period, just like the Six-Day War and everything associated with Israel. It's always been very tidy, a very precise operation very precise operation with the Six-Day War, a very precise operation at the bombing of the nuclear facilities and so on. But you see, did you go ahead?
Well, yeah, you were talking about the reporting and the media.
Right. Yeah.
I was telling you about our local media, about the chemical weapons that were allegedly used. Now, for over a week, I've been hearing when they run the national news ticker that nobody's sure who used the chemical weapons. But when it plays our local news, they always say the Assad and the government, Assad-backed forces, were the ones that used it. They say it like it is a fact. And in 10 minutes, we're going to play a clip and show you and go through more deception in the media with the Boston Marathon aftermath, the martial law, that we have people on the news saying guns were not pointed at people's house or at them. They were not forced out of their house. This never happened.
Yeah, and the folks that will be joining us for the 9 o'clock hour, the new folks joining us for that hour, are going to be just amazed at what they hear, as will you be amazed, listeners, at what you hear. Deception, because deception is part of this. But with respect to the bombings that early Sunday morning, I was troubled by the inaccurate description of events, as many of you, I'm sure, were as well, as we know that what we're seeing is part of something much larger and much more ominous. It is here, it's been here on this very program that we've talked about the beginning of World War III. That it would not start with Iran, but with Syria. We've written about death race to Damascus. You see, it's this death race to Damascus by an agenda so nefarious that it could only be ascribed to an unseen evil, perhaps the devil incarnate. But it was during the darkness of last Sunday, during the darkest hours, that I decided to turn on my television for updates from the media, with which most Americans are so enamored and by which they are so controlled. At this early hour, I stumbled across an infomercial, and folks, you've all seen these, selling DVDs of old television variety shows, seemingly from a much simpler time, by the way. Momentarily taking a break from my task, I decided to just keep the channel there and watch this, and I don't know, perhaps caught up by the motion of a man spinning several plates atop wooden sticks, my German Shepherd suddenly woke up from his very light slumber. He made a groan. He looked at the on-screen motion. That seemed to be a staple of variety shows of the 1960s. And I was watching my dog. His gaze was really captivated by the spinning motion of the plates and the man frantically moving from one side of the table to the other. Folks, you remember those programs? The Ed Sullivan Show, for example, and others that Joe would never remember. But much simpler times, but he was watching this guy move from one side of the table to the other as the various plates were spinning. All were airborne atop these wooden sticks, and as they were spinning, he added even more. And I watched my dog as he seemed mesmerized, staring at the television without even blinking for at least a full minute. You know, and I'm serious about that. He looked at that and wouldn't even blink. But when the man finally lost control of the spinning plates and they all crashed to the floor, there were laughs from the audience. And my dog looked at me and I looked at him, and now he was looking at me as if to ask, well, what was that all about? It was actually, folks, an outtake of an act that was never broadcast, replaced instead, of course, at that time in the 1960s by the successful act that concluded with all of the plates intact. But seeing the reality of the event that never aired was the major selling point, I suppose, of the DVD series. But the things that are not broadcast during normal programming, the messes, the mistakes, the breakage, whatever, really takes place behind the scenes. That's the selling point. I noticed that, by the way, this man, the plate spinner, had 2 or 3 assistants who stood just outside of visual range, who quickly came to his aid after the broadcast feed was cut, and perhaps once the curtain that separated the actor from the audience was closed. Now, for my dog, though, the visual spell was broken once the plate stopped spinning and crashed to the floor. And there it is. I thought, in the dark of the night, and outside of the normal viewing times of network television, there it is the broader explanation of the events on the world stage. We've got a plate spinner. We've got Obama. He had the agenda. He's the visual plate spinner, and his assistants behind him are the Saudis and the globalists and the those who are prompting him and aiding him and abetting him in this maddening, world-grabbing, chess piece moving game, real-world game of Risk. But like my just awakened dog and the on-screen action that captivated his stare, the people have been watching the spinner add more and more plates, awestruck at this exhibit of talent. The audience anticipates a successful conclusion to this marvelous feat of balance and dexterity. And they're ready to cheer when the spinner removes the plates from their balancing post and the act successfully concludes very neat and tidy without anything broken. And as I said, Obama could be compared to this visible plate spinner in this act known as Arab Spring, leading to World War III, captivating the world by the many plates on sticks. He's entertaining the world audience while the producers, the media, and the globalists quickly edit out any missteps, broken plates, keeping the reality from the captive audience. But folks, some breakage cannot be edited out by the media and must be explained away in a different manner. And you're going to hear that different manner here shortly. How things like the Boston bombing, the real facts behind the Boston bombing, how it's being spun. Just like the plates, how things are being spun. Joe found this. He showed it to me. I thought he put it together. I thought he was spoofing me. I really did. It's that egregious. But such was the case with Benghazi, and is the case with the Israeli airstrikes on the missiles in Syria. Their explanation in place of edits transcend the realm of perception, folks, to that of deception. You've got to understand that we're being walked, pushed, prodded, and plunged into World War III. And that's not hyperbole, that's fact.
And worse than World War III is the deception you've talked about. The people that have been sucked in, bought in, and been taken away by that deception. But part of that is their own fault. When reading, or I'm not sure what I was doing this weekend when I was thinking about this, how hard is it, or what is a person lacking that they don't want to find out information or the truth for themselves? What is it about people, or what is it about a person's life at a certain point, or their mindset? I mean, is it a mindset? Were they born that way? Were they? I mean, where's the motivation for anything other than materialism and entertainment?
Well, you know what? That's a great question, and one that maybe you folks listening to this broadcast might contemplate as well. You know people like that. Perhaps you were once like that. You grow out of it. It's called maturity. You see, I mean, in my mind at least, the fact that you don't want to know is much different than the fact that you are unaware. And there are two distinctly different venues, two distinctly different areas of existence. Look, in 2001, on 9/11, I was a flag-waving patriot that would have voted in the NDAA in a heartbeat, and of course was behind the Patriot
No,
Act and understood all of that.
you wouldn't have voted to be able to take any American citizen without evidence.
But you know what?
But
You know
the
what? I
Patriot
think
Act
no.
you agree
I
with.
think so. No. You know what though? I think at the time,
You
if it
didn't
was explained to
understand
me, if it was explained to me that this is only for the Muslims, and there's going to be a signing statement that's going to be binding.
But see, I wasn't even okay with just that. With that, and it had nothing to do with the Muslim people. It was just you can't. It was the problem with changing the way things are supposed to be, the laws that keep us free because of things that are out of our control. I mean, there's always dangers in the world. You know that now more people die of suicide in the U.S. than anything else. Like that just came out. I think
Right.
that stat. We have hundreds of thousands of people that die in car accidents, and for all sorts of reasons. But the point is, I don't remember what we were just discussing. No, I was thinking of the clip we're going to play. The deception.
But I do though, because it's easy to stand behind the red, white, and blue patriotic spirit of America and say, you know what, you just bloodied our nose and face and eye, and we just got sucker punched like you can't believe. And I'll tell you what, be prepared because we're going to pull out all the stops. And I understand now, but back then it seemed different. But was I correct? Of course not. Of course not. And see, I admit that. But there are still people today, just like people today, believing in the Democratic Republican paradigm. Do you think for one moment?
If you read the fine print, you read the fine print of the Patriot Act, you might have thought differently. But you saw what was presented to you for the most part.
Right, exactly. So there's this level of maturity. What we were talking about is that seed of unwillingness to address what's right in front of our faces. Look, I understand people are busy; they're working 2 jobs because of that third chessboard. Because of the economic reality is we are being pillaged and plundered. Our wealth, our toil, and that of our children is being taken away from us. And folks, if you are not absolutely angry at what is taking place by this cabal of bankers, by this unseen hand, by these insatiable, and I mean insatiable, idiots, the lustful, greedy people that want everything and not only want everything for themselves, of course they do, but they want everything. They want your children. They want your children, and they want you. You see, you've got to face the fact that there are people out there that don't think like you. They think like they are better than you, and this is all part of it. It's belief is the driver of action. A good friend once said to me. And think about that.
And their souls are sick too. They're obviously very deceived too. And if they can still be saved, we need to be praying that those still can be saved.
But I'm extremely angry as you're going to hear in this clip coming up. I don't care if you listen to Fox News. I don't care if you listen to Bill O'Reilly or Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh or whoever you listen to, it doesn't matter. I want, as a consumer of information, I want the truth. Okay? I want you to speak to me, number one, as an adult. Number two, don't trivialize what we're going through. Number three, don't try to cover up evil by saying it's incompetence. Don't try to tell me or sell me on the difference between a Republican and a Democrat when you've got John Bonnier up there selling out America at every twist and turn.
It's not just him. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm angry, and you should be angry as well, because we are being lied to, whether it's by the left or by the right, by the progressives, or the so-called, even the Tea Party at some point has sold out their souls at various levels. We
the
are
politicians,
Yep. And look, all we want is the truth, because we can handle the truth. We're adults and we need to act on the truth, because we need to be able to plan. We need to be able to look at what's coming at us. Don't tell me that light up there is a flashlight when it's the light on a freight train and I'm stuck in a tunnel or on a bridge. Don't lie to me to buy time so you can get out of Dodge while we suffer. And that includes every one of you listeners, because I hope I speak for every one of you who say, look, we might not have the voice. I might not have the voice to talk. I might not have the platform to talk. And by the grace of God and the benefit and the by the grace of God and the charity of our listeners, we have the platform, and the word is getting out and the word is spreading. But that said, we need to be responsible watchmen, as Jeremiah has charged us to be. But you see, we're not getting the truth. We're not getting the truth. We're not going to get the truth on May 8th when they hold this one-day hearing. It's not going to be the truth, and it's a shame when you've got to reduce people involved in Benghazi to the status of whistleblowers. Shouldn't that be ringing the alarm bells of every person of intelligence? Of course it should, but it's not. I just want to say that that we're being lied to. You know it. The fact is, the situation is much worse than you've been told, and we're not going to have. We are not going to see. We will see. I should say, we will see this escalate. This rocket attack in Israel, it's going to escalate into more and more. And you see the difference between Syria and Iran and Iraq, or between Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan, is Iraq imploded. Afghanistan imploded. Egypt even imploded. But Syria, because China and Russia and other players have interests there, it's going to explode and take with it other countries. There will be a regional conflict that will turn into a global conflict, otherwise known as World War III. That's what we're witnessing, folks, right in front of our very eyes. And we are most likely going to be on the wrong side of history, and certainly the wrong side of God.
Yeah.
At least by this leadership.
And what we're seeing with the World War III, with the attacks on different countries, this is the attacks from governments are happening to the economy. They're happening to our agriculture. I'm going to give you an example of that right now. We're going to play the clip of Lawrence O'Donnell on the other side of the on the top of the next hour, and go through how deceptive it is and why it's so dangerous for him to be saying the lies that he is saying. But we have the European Commission to criminalize nearly all seeds and plants not registered with the government. This is from Natural News. Now, do you remember in the U.S., S510, the Food Safety Modernization Act?
I do. I've got a copy right here.
Which basically gave the government control of all seeds, made it illegal to sell, trade. And I don't remember the whole, what everything was in there that made it illegal. But now we have, think of this, we have the government's taxing rainwater. In Maryland, they passed a rain tax. They're taxing all sorts. We talked about this on the show and played the audio clips from a couple news sources. And I was thinking about this because they said they're going to tax all the surfaces that don't absorb water, like your roof and your driveway. Well, it's not like the water stays on your roof. It goes and drains into your gutters, which leak out into your yard. It doesn't stay on your driveway and pile up. You don't have 10 inches of rain in your driveway.
Although there's two reasons for it. One is to generate revenue, of course,
but just the control aspect.
Control, and the control is probably the primary aspect that we should be really concerned about.
And they're moving, and the national parks are already gone, but they're moving in to really cut those off. And things that used to be necessities in normal everyday life for people, like fishing and hunting. You're going to tell someone 100 years ago that they had to wait for a certain time of the year, a 2-week window in the year to go deer hunting to catch their dinner? and to go catch fish. I mean, the government is in the healthcare. They're in our paychecks. They're in our everyday life, what we eat, what we drink, how much water's in our toilet, what we can and cannot ingest, whether it's dangerous or not. They are involved in every aspect of our life. They have a total control network over us. The surveillance, $790 billion America spent on the DHS surveillance and other things since 9/11 with our own money. And it's just getting worse and worse. And what we're going to see is this trend continue. It will never get better. America will never be restored to the country that everybody wants it to be.
Really quick, let me interject something here. There was a TV show where a young immigrant from Russia, was talking, and the MC, the person behind the microphone, asked, "Well, you came from Russia, what struck you the most living in America?" And it was a young man who said, "What struck me the most, I think, was I thought America would be much more free than what it is." And person was taken aback, saying, "Well, what do you mean, much more free?" Well, in Russia, we don't have to register our vehicles. We don't have to get driver's licenses. We don't have to have all of these various taxes and regulations, business regulations, and all this. So America is less free than Russia in the practical sense.
In Russia, can you drink iced tea while leaning up against your car without getting arrested?
Well, in Russia, you can't drink, in Russia, I think you're allowed to drink 32-ounce big gulps from the 7-Eleven and iced tea. And, you can probably park in a lot and be black. Yeah. And, I got you.
I say that, listeners, and I'll cover why I said that on the other side for those who have not seen it yet. It is pretty ridiculous. I did not upload the audio. I'll just explain to you what happened in this situation where a man was arrested for drinking iced tea. But we're up against the break already of the first hour. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Monday, May 6, 2013. We'll be right back after these short messages. Stay with us.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilida Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
We, the people, chose to do these things together because we know this country cannot accomplish great things if we pursue nothing greater than our own individual ambition. Unfortunately, you've grown up hearing voices that incessantly warn of government as nothing more than some separate, sinister entity that's at the root of all our problems. Some of these same voices also do their best to gum up the works. They'll warn that tyranny is always lurking just around the corner. You should reject these voices, because what they suggest is that our brave and creative and unique experiment in self-rule is somehow just a sham with which we can't be trusted. We have never been a people who place all of our faith in government to solve our problems. We shouldn't want to. But we don't think the government is the source of all our problems either, because we understand that this democracy is ours. And as citizens, we understand that it's not about what America can do for us, it's about what can be done by us together. through the hard and frustrating but absolutely necessary work of self-government. And class of 2013, you have to be involved in that process.
You want answers? I'll take every title you want. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this manic Monday. It is the 6th day of May 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. In studio with me is Joe Hagmann, my son. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. I want to welcome new listeners in Edmonton, Alberta. Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Welcome. We want to welcome new listeners in Portland, Oregon, and the outskirts of Seattle, Washington. Joining us now for the second hour, welcome. And also, newly, according to my email, new listeners in Las Vegas, Nevada. Welcome to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us, your belief and trust in us as we walk through this minefield of events together. One announcement before we continue. Joe and I we're humbled to have been asked by Pastor Randy Umberger to attend in person, to speak in person, along with Susan Price, Gold Star Mother Susan Price, PriceForJustice.com, at the Baptist Church in Apex, North Carolina, on the weekend of the 7th, 8th, and 9th of June. We are going to be in person in Apex, North Carolina, kicking off perhaps one of many in-person sessions. We may, in fact, even be broadcasting live from Apex, North Carolina. All of the arrangements are not in, but I just want, in the next day or so, we're going to be putting up on our website the details to that, the agenda, and also a link where you can register. But I would urge everyone to register early. Please plan if you're within driving distance. You know, if you're within that area, and we know we have a lot of listeners in that immediate area, please register. Come and meet us. Come meet Susan Price, this Gold Star mother who really has fought and is fighting the good fight. But with that, Joe, it's great to be here.
Yeah, keep this in the back of your mind about North Carolina. If we don't have a show on Saturday or Sunday, if the pastor and Susan wouldn't mind, we can work this out somehow. Maybe we could broadcast an hour of one of the seminars or broadcast the pastor's sermon on Sunday on our show.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that there are DVDs being created, so I think that we have to discuss that because of the licensing factor. Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll talk to the pastor about that. But it's going to be a fantastic appearance, I have to say that. Susan Price.
Yeah, I am really excited to go, too. What you guys heard during the break of Obama speaking, he was giving a speech to Ohio State University on the 5th of May in Columbus, the commencement address to the graduating class at Ohio State. And what he said in there is, unfortunately, you've grown up hearing voices that incessantly warn of government as nothing more than some separate, sinister entity at the root of all our problems. That's one part of his quote. Now,
scary.
It's not. I mean, the government is not the root of all of our problems. Our spiritual decay is the root of our problems, but the government is not helping. They're making everything so much worse, obviously. But they're facilitating it. We let this happen.
Exactly.
Gradually. Going on with what he says. Some of these voices also do their best to gum up the works. They'll warn that tyranny is always lurking around the corner. You should reject these voices because of what they suggest is that our brave and creative and unique experiment in self-rule is somehow just a sham with which we can't be trusted.
And you know what? That dovetails very nicely into the media clip by the intellectually deficient and deliberately deceptive Lawrence O'Donnell that and as much, and I got to say this, as much as it pains me to even play that, I think it's an important lesson. It's, if you were in a classroom, this would be a lesson for you, an exhibit, shall we say. But
And I didn't even upload any of the rebuttal videos of the witnesses who went through the martial law in Boston. And I'll talk about that on the other side of this clip, as it is part of. But this is Lawrence O'Donnell. The title of this is Lawrence O'Donnell Destroys Ron Paul Over Boston Lockdown Lies. And in this clip, he says that there were no guns pointed at people. They weren't forced to do anything. There was no martial law, and he's a liar. But it's bad. And here it is.
Yesterday, Rand's father, Ron Paul, finally gave the world his long-awaited take on law enforcement reaction to the bombing. In an op-ed for a libertarian website entitled "Liberty Was Also Attacked in Boston," Ron is a much more consistent libertarian than Rand, who is surely the slowest student of libertarianism in the Paul family. But Ron lies just as much as his son, and just as blatantly, and always has. The first word of Ron's op-ed piece is a lie. The first word, the first sentence is a lie. The first paragraph is a lie. Let's count the lies in Ron's first paragraph. Forced lockdown of a city. Now let's listen to the governor announcing the forced lockdown.
We're asking people to shelter in place, in other words, to stay indoors with their doors locked and not to open the door for anyone other than a properly identified law enforcement officer, and that applies here in Watertown, where we are right now, also Cambridge, Waltham, Newton, Belmont, and at this point, all of Boston. All of Boston.
Did you get that? Forced? He said, we're asking people to shelter in place. That's what the governor said. He did not order anyone to do anything. Now let's listen to the guy who stepped up to the microphone right after the governor, the Boston Police Commissioner.
Mayor Menino was asking you to come here and to tell you that the shelter-in-place recommendation has been extended throughout the city of Boston.
The shelter-in-place recommendation. So forced is lie number one. Let's look at lie number two. Tanks. Okay? There were no tanks in Boston. The Boston police don't have tanks. This is a tank. And this is the most fearsome vehicle that the Boston police used in the manhunt.
They're showing the vehicles that look like a tank without the gun.
Armored trucks that move cash to and from your neighborhood bank. It is not a tank. Look at those tires on the police vehicle. Now look at the tires on a tank. See? No tires on a tank. Ron Paul knows the difference. He served honorably in our military. He knows the difference between a tank and an armored car, but for rhetorical effect, he prefers the lie to the truth on that one. Door-to-door armed searches without warrant. Police don't need warrants if property owners welcome them into their homes. Families thrown out of their homes at gunpoint to be searched without probable cause. No guns were pointed at any families. Some families vacated their homes in Cambridge as police searched homes in that area, in the area of the suspect's home. I was on the street in Cambridge then talking to the residents who were very glad to be out of their homes for the few hours it took the police to be sure that there were no more bombs in that area near the suspect's home, in or near the suspect's home. The street that the police was searching then was actually full of spectators and reporters watching the bomb search from what we hoped was a safe distance. None of the spectators on the street were following the recommendation to shelter in place, and no police officer told them to go home because no police officer had the authority to tell anyone to go home because there was no forced lockdown. No businesses were forced to close. That is another Ron Paul lie. No businesses were forced to close. A wonderful little cafe was doing a busy lunch business on the corner of the street being searched for bombs in Cambridge. Transport shut down. Well, taxis were running most of the day, and you could always drive a car anywhere you wanted, but subways and buses were shut down. So I will give Ron Paul that one. So the first paragraph has 6 sentences and 5 lies. Ron Paul repeats variations on those lies throughout the piece. The shelter-in-place command, those are his words, that's what he calls it. There was no command. The paramilitary troops terrorizing the public. Those are the words he used, terrorizing the public. Here is how the public reacted to being terrorized by their local police.
Yeah, and this is sad.
Paramilitary police riding in tanks and pointing automatic weapons at innocent citizens. That's what Ron Paul wrote. What a vile lie. There were no tanks and there were no police pointing their weapons at innocent citizens.
Well,
let me just
have it.
Well,
I'm gonna start posting pictures in the chat room. Now, we know what this Lawrence O'Donnell from MSNBC is doing. He's doing what he's accusing Ron Paul of doing, of splitting hairs and language. But this picture I'm going to post in chat right now is of a man pointing a gun from the top of a Hummer at the person who is videotaping him. In the Americans Rule, I'm going to go through this, what he says. He made some points. First, he said the first lie was Ron Paul said that people were forced out of their homes instead of the term shelter in place, which is what Lawrence O'Donnell said and what the government used. Now, there's a problem here because Lawrence O'Donnell did not make the distinction between the whole area of Boston and the area, the smaller area where the martial law was really being carried out.
Correct.
There were not tanks on the street, but they might as well have been. It wouldn't, I mean, you guys have seen the pictures. Would it have made a difference if there were tanks or not? It looked the same.
Well, he was making this absurd distinction between
like saying,
tires and treads.
That's like having a AK-47 and having a
AR-15.
Yeah, and saying, well, you know, they were using assault rifles, the AK-47 assault rifles, whereas other people, we were using the military given AR-15 defense weapon. You know, it's
and making it think. You see, here's what Lawrence O'Donnell is, and most of the media, what they are. They are weak sense critical thinkers. They are skilled manipulators. They are a part of a group of people who are very skilled in the art of manipulation and control. These people are shrewdly focused on pursuing their own interests and the interests of this administration, this regime, their messiah, without respect to how that pursuit affects anyone else. And at the expense of the truth. They share many characteristics of uncritical thinkers. They've got qualities that separate them from uncritical persons, but they have greater command of the rhetoric of persuasion. And see, they are more sophisticated, more verbal, and generally have greater status, like O'Donnell. And you might not think, well, he doesn't have status. But he does. He's got the microphone. He's got a following. He's got a channel. He's got a network. He's got the backing. He is the mouthpiece for this regime. Folks, skilled manipulators, they're rarely insightful dissenters, rebels, or critics of the status quo of society. The reason is simple: they cannot effectively manipulate members of a mass audience if they appear to that mass to be invalidating their beliefs. So they don't use their intelligence for the public good. They use it to get what they want or what they're told to say, in alliance with those who share their vested interests. And
That's right.
I'll tell you what, it's just, I can go on and on and on, but it's my understanding we have a very special.
Yeah, we're going to go
here
to the phones in 1 second to Jeff in Chelsea, Massachusetts. We were waiting for him to call in since the night of the bombing.
I didn't know if if this guy was in the gulag in the Boston jail or what was going on.
But just let me say a couple more things real quick about this Lawrence O'Donnell clip. He said that there were no door-to-door searches. People were not forced out of their homes. No gun was ever pointed at an American citizen.
Yeah, we've got photographs that show otherwise.
Okay. I posted in the chat, especially the last link I posted, is a whole series of photos of troops in people's houses, troops pointing guns at women and children. You're not invited. You can't consent to anything while looking down the barrel of a gun. That is intimidation, coercion, and force.
Of course.
Right?
No, yeah, absolutely.
That's not.
No, I know.
Leave, please, for there's a shelter in place down the street. No, that's get out of your house. I mean, we saw the videos.
Of course. Lawrence O'Donnell is a liar.
Okay, and that's his problem. What is my problem is that he has had a show, and he still has it. It has people don't see the just complete lack of common sense and all. They don't grasp the lies. They don't even understand that they're being lied to. You know, that's so frustrating. If it's half of his audience. If two people, half of his audience, knew the truth, he'd be off the air because he could not get away with what he does.
Well, I got to tell you, I've had it up to here with O'Donnell and pieces and persons like him, and I'll stop there.
And we're going to go to Jeff in Chelsea, Massachusetts, who apparently survived the marathon bombing blast. Jeff, it's been a long time.
Yes, it has been. Well, as far as the bombing's concerned, let's start at the beginning. Me and my friend were in Boston soul winning and witnessing at the Boston Marathon. And first off, the spiritual condition of the area, the people of Boston at the marathon were hard as a rock. They didn't want to hear about Jesus or anything. That is a lost area. With that said, me and my friend were at the Boston Public Library right near the finish line when the bombing happened. We heard the two blasts. We heard a big blast, and then we heard a small blast shortly afterwards. And we seen people running our way, and people were panicked. People were panicked. I mean, they shut down the Boston Marathon. Now, I have EMT training. What?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to ask you this. Before the bombs went off, was there anything that, I mean, you're from Boston. I don't know if you've been to the marathons before. Was anything out of the ordinary to you?
No, not that I would say, but I'll say this. Me and my friend Bob, we talked about this, that if a terrorist attack was going to happen, we were thinking more along the lines of the John Hancock Tower getting bombed, but let that go. Me and my friend Bob, we said that when Boston gets bombed, it's going to be on Boston Marathon Day, Gay Pride, 4th of July, or New Year's Eve. Anywhere where there's a lot of people around, something was going to happen because, the talk radios in our area were talking about the Boston Islamic Center in Roxbury, Massachusetts, and the sister church to where the Zarnovs gone to, which is the Cambridge Mosque. And when the bombing happened, the day afterwards, I got on air of the local talk shows, and I said that that Boston Mosque ought to be shut down. that area is an incubator for terrorism. And, you let a snake in and you're going to get bit. But,
Hey,
yes, but, because I work in Boston, I seen the SWAT, I seen the police going through the streets. And in fact, on Friday, when they were chasing the Zarnoffs, they shut down the whole Boston area. The place where I worked at, we were in lockdown mode. We had to stay inside the building. No trucks could get in there or anything, and we had to use the flashlight on the mirror on every vehicle instead of random. And I had to walk home that day. So,
Well, Jeff,
Boston,
Lawrence O'Donnell would call you a liar because he's saying that nothing was locked down. It was a voluntary shelter in place.
and you could have caught a
that's
cab,
bull. Oh
according
no,
to him.
I could have caught a cab. I could have caught a cab. I didn't want to burden my company, and it was a nice day, so I walked home. That Friday, Boston was like a ghost town. I just wanted to see the city because I believe bigger bombings are coming up next, and when it happens, the whole city of Boston will be a crime area, and you know what? I knew this would happen. I absolutely knew without a doubt this bombing would happen because we let in these Muslims. This is not an inside government job. This is Muslims, plain and simple. Now there was a drill going on that day, granted, and our government let stuff go, but I know the area. 9/11 is a different story, but this is what these Muslims do all the time in Israel. They set off these kind of bombs all the time, and I'm telling you something. It's only going to get worse. And but just watching the SWAT, watching the way people react. I mean, and Boston Strong. That's a deception. Mayor Menino and Deval Patrick. These are anti-Christ people. Deval Patrick actually said, "It has been 5 years since the Goodrich decision, and the sky has not fallen, and the ground has not opened up to swallow its inhabitants." That man is antichrist, and spiritually, we're getting judged by Jesus Christ because of gay marriage, because of that mosque in Roxbury, Massachusetts, funded by your taxpayer dollars, that wants to carve up Israel like a birthday cake, and abortion. I mean, we educate all these fools at Harvard University and MIT and all these places that fill these judicial positions to push this garbage. So we're reaping stuff. Boston's the home of gay marriage.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to sound like Fred Phelps, because I'm not. I am not Fred Phelps. This is what God showed to me, that because of gay marriage, we're contaminating this country with gay marriage, greater judgments are going to come on the Boston area. My prediction, the Hancock and the Prudential Tower are sitting ducks. I talked to Colonel David West on a talk show on Saturday. I said, those two places ought to be hardened homeland security sites. And if you audience don't know what a hardened homeland security site is, it's bomb-sniffing dogs, flashing a mirror to every vehicle, pop open the hood of the vehicle and search inside the vehicle thoroughly with a flashlight, and see if there's any bombs inside. Check the back of the truck. Check every box in the back of the truck before it goes in there. Having armed guards in there, those are landmarks. If you don't, it's a sitting duck. So that's what I meant when I said a hardened homeland security site, because I know security inside and out practically. And you know what Colonel David Hunt said to me? That's his name, David Hunt. He had a special broadcast. He's with a local talk show host. He said, I tried saying that right after 9/11, and he said, who's going to pay for it? And that's why we don't have security, and that's why we're going to get hit again. It's just that simple. Do you guys have any commentary or thoughts?
Yes, Jeff. I would like to ask you a couple questions. One,
sure.
What the Boston was the 14th, 15th? What have you been doing the last 3 weeks? You didn't have time to call. We've been waiting for your call since that happened.
No. I mean, because I listen to your program somewhat, but half the time I'm in bed. The other half of the time, you're having technical difficulties with your program.
No, Jeff, I'm just giving you a hard time.
we're just giving you a hard time, my friend.
That was just kind of a joke.
Look, Jeff, one question I do have. You said you were at the library, right, at the time of the bombing?
Yeah, Boston Public Library, but I didn't see the bodies. Even though I have EMT training, I know that when you see bodies and body parts around, that gives the EMT post-traumatic stress disorder, and the EMT without his tools is not any good. I failed the final test, so I'm not officially an EMT, and so forth. And there was a ton of medics there. The ace in Boston's hole was there was a ton of EMTs there taking care of business. And shortly afterwards, I walked by the area of the bombing, and it was eerie. There was windows boarded up, and the reason why I believe those terrorists hit was because they know that Boston's a fat cat city, and we were soft. They planned on hitting the 4th of July, so they knew what they were doing.
Jeff, what makes you think that this was not a false flag or part? You said you knew that there were drills going on with the bomb squads. What makes you think this was the real deal?
Well, because number one, we have a Muslim as president that listen to all this stuff. Number two, Boston's one of the homosexual. That area is a big hotbed of homosexuality, and Muslims hate homosexuals. And Boston also has a high population of Jewish people in there, and Muslims hate Jews. And also Boston's a soft target. We have no gun defense. I mean, Mayor Menino, you know, practically restricts people in that area the right to bear arms. I mean the people were saying Boston's strong because of the SWAT teams in there. I mean that's Boston's a practical police state. I mean, even the place where I live at is difficult. Yes.
Well, Jeff, I guess my question to you: do you think? Okay, were you? How can I phrase this? Was the response to lock down, basically lock down, as you described it?
Pull people out of their houses at gunpoint.
Was that appropriate? Do you think? I mean, now as a security professional yourself, Jeff. Okay.
Yeah.
Was the response appropriate? Was the response over the top, or was it appropriate for the event?
Well, I personally, personally, because there was only two people, I think it was a bit of overkill and so forth. Just to search for two people. That's just my personal opinion, and also I believe the government's getting people used to martial law because one day every God showed this to me in Revelation that every company, even the one I work for, you're going to see Homeland Security cover all these places, and they're getting people conditioned to having their groin grabbed on the subway, just like at the airport. So I believe this is. I believe this. I believe this is conditioning. I mean, what God showed to me in the spirit is freedom of speech will be curtailed. This will scare people into submitting to Islam and communism, and Deval Patrick is the man to implement it. So is Mayor Menino, and I'll tell you, I'm not afraid of this attack. It's the one coming up, which is the Hancock and the Prudential. That scares me as a believer, because I know if I die, I go to heaven. But most of these people, if they die, they're not going to heaven. So that's I'm looking at it from a spiritual point of view.
Well, you know, that's the way too we look at it as well. And you know, you were there. You were basically at ground zero at the time it happened. You saw some things. I think we're pretty much in agreement that this population, that we as Americans are being conditioned to accept a police security, police state, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, And the Islamic element, in my view, now they're being used as a tool of the globalists simply because look, they hate America, they hate their culture, and of course Sharia is inconsistent with them our republic. With our republic laws, and I mean with the laws of our constitutional republic. So I think we're in agreement there. And but
Oh,
I'll tell
yeah.
you what, I'm really glad to hear from you. We were seriously, we were concerned about your welfare. We were concerned about
I was too.
well,
I was too. This is so great to
it's
talk to you guys
well. I got to
because
tell you something, Jeff. I think you're right.
yes.
I think you're right. In talking with others, and I spoke with my DHS source. Boston is on the short list. Don't forget, is on the short list of cities that could, in fact, experience something to take place here in the short term. By that I mean between now and through the end of the summer. And yeah, the targets you mentioned, at least one of them I heard from a secondary source. I'm not going to name which one, but
Don't do it.
yeah, I'm not going to do it. But that said, I think that we've got some issues here that we've got to address as a community, as a family, the listeners, the people involved. Jeff, you're part of our extended family. Look, we've got to be smart here. We've got to be on the watch out. We got to watch out for one another.
Keep your ear on the reel. I do have to ask you this question, which is did your source say that Boston's on the short list for, let's say, an attack on the Hancock Tower, pretty much because Colonel David Hunt on WRKO said he tried talking to the Hancock Tower or something like that, or taught the government to put that on the Homeland Security list of hardened targets, and they wouldn't do it because people don't want to pay for it.
That's exactly correct. What Colonel Hunt said is exactly correct, and it's even worse than that. They've cut
Please
security.
Tell me.
They've cut security.
What? I didn't hear you.
They've cut security. They have
really.
Well, yes, and I'm not talking about physical, necessarily physical people. The security guard element. They've cut.
It's the tactics.
Yeah, without getting into it, if I got into it, I would expose vulnerabilities. I don't want to do that, but
they've expanded security without being efficient.
Just take a look at the John Hancock building and see the changes that have been made for the purposes of saving a buck, and you'll see what I mean. And I'll just stop right there because I don't want to give away ideas.
No, that's fair because in my area, which I don't even say the place where I work at because I don't want to expose its vulnerabilities, but rest assured, at the area where I work at, I've been pushing for MOAB training to be taught to the guards. I've been pushing for this a while ago for the security director and the assistant to pack heat. Won't do it. I asked my account manager and to push for himself and his assistant to pack heat. Absolutely not. And I think it's universal in all these buildings that where the dockmaster is usually an inside building hack that's not a real security person. And if you know anything about security, which you guys do, the loading dock is a surefire place where a device can get through to bring down the building. Look at World Trade Center in 1993. One of my heroes is Rick Riscola, the security director of Dean Witter at the World Trade Center. He got all those people out by practicing fire drills. He knew what was coming in 2001 because he experienced the 1993 attack. I believe that God has put me in the Boston area as a spiritual Rick Riscola to sound the alarm. This is coming. Get your people ready. Get ready for heavy casualties. And pretty much people think that what I say about the Hancock and the Prudential, their eyes glaze over and they say, yeah, right, this is science fiction. This is never going to happen. And guess what? Just like 9/11 happened, this is going to happen because I know the vulnerabilities. You know the vulnerabilities. I mean, and you know what? I'm going to close with this. David Hunt said, "Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for all this home security?" And you know, right now, we have a Muslim in the White House, and people are not going to pay for it until it's too late, and then we're going to really, really, really pay for it with checkpoints and TSA in the subway, TSA in the office building, or Blackwater security. God showed it to me in Revelation. Blackwater types guarding the loading docks of all these buildings, guarding the inside of these buildings. It's going to be a police state. Guys, God bless you. Keep up the good work and have a good one.
Thanks, Jeff. Right on, man. And
It's
he's
great
right
to
about
hear from you, Jeff.
Yeah, and he's right too about the methods of expansion. Don't shortchange that in your thinking. In other words, I'll just leave it at that. It's a process of defanging our actual security for the illusion of security. It's taking place all over the country, including Boston.
Jeff, if you're still listening, Blackwater was at the marathon before the bomb went off.
In fact, not only Blackwater, but just
they're
about
known as craft.
every agency, right? Every agency that you could possibly think of was represented. So, is there? Do we have the right to question what really went on? Absolutely. Do we have the responsibility to question? Absolutely.
Will we be called lunatic fringe for doing so? Yes, absolutely.
And we probably wear that banner.
Yeah, and Jeff, for those of you who don't know, Jeff is one of, I think he's been listening to us forever. He's been calling us forever, and he's been saying that something was going to happen in Boston.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why we were expecting him to call, like right away. But he's been busy. But thanks, Jeff. We appreciate the call. It's good to hear from you. All right, we're going to move on to some other news. They passed today, or they passed yesterday or today, one of the 2 days, the internet sales tax. Let me see. Senate set to approve online sales tax. This is an article from The Hill from earlier today, and I think action has been taken, and I think they did pass it. I'm not sure 100%. I thought I saw an article about that just before we went on air, but the Senate is poised to approve legislation that would give states greater authority to collect sales tax on goods sold online by out-of-state retailers. Filibuster-proof majorities have already signaled their support for a bill in a series of procedural votes.
Well,
of course they're going to vote to tax an untaxed market.
Let me just jump in here and say this for clarification. The Senate today passed a bill, tonight actually passed a bill aimed at making it easier for each state to collect sales taxes for online purchases. Now, we have to say this, though. Its final disposition is still uncertain. But even so, small online retailers, they're already thinking about the bill's potentially large impact on their operations. And we folks, you and I, you as listeners and us as hosts, we've got to think about what's going on here. This is not about evening the playing field as it's being told about protecting the brick and mortar stores. That's not what this is all about. This is about tracking your online purchases.
And they did pass
it. The Senate did, yes. The Senate passed the bill.
Right, it hasn't been signed.
Right, but you
think Obama's
you're muted there. But you've got to think about how this is going to be playing out, and it's going to be tracking your online purchases. It's not just about. I mean, certainly it's a revenue generation tool. However, now the bill does face a hurdle in the House. Again, it's unclear where this is going to go, but. If you think about this, I do have a feeling that we're going to be looking at a new internet tax here in the short term. But things have, certainly times have changed. We can go back to 1992, a Supreme Court case ruled that states could only require businesses to collect sales tax if the business had paid or had a physical presence in the state. Now, we as a business, because of our service business, because we're a multi-state licensed investigative agency, we had to collect sales tax out of the different states that we were providing a service in were required, such as New York State. But again, 1992, the Supreme Court case ruled that states could only require businesses to collect sales tax if they had a brick and mortar store in the state, such as a store, warehouse, whatever. But out-of-state retailers back then, they did not have to collect sales tax because it was deemed too difficult for them to abide by so many different tax jurisdictions and rules. Now, you've got a $230 billion a year business and software, tracking software. This is about tracking your purchases as much as it is about collecting revenue, folks. Understand that.
Yep. And they're going to collect revenue at every chance they get. I think that Obama won't sign into law something that is a tax revenue generator through a new tax. I mean, they invent new taxes. Of course, they're going to tax an untaxed market if they have the ability to do so. It's probably the last untaxed place left. I don't know where you can buy things without paying a sales tax anymore. I mean, even online now, if they're going to implement this.
This is one more step toward that digital currency.
Even person to person. You sell your car, you have to pay a tax on it. Through the notary, they take care of all that based on how much the price of the sale is. So personal sales from a person to person can be taxed. Every sale from any person to business is taxed. And now online transactions between people or businesses will be taxed.
Well, we still have some time here. It passed the Senate, but it's got to pass the House and be signed into law. Whether it passes the House, I don't know.
Of all the things I'm worried about, stopping the internet sales tax is probably not even on that list. And I don't know. I don't buy too much off the internet, but that doesn't really bother me. I would focus more on things like World War III going up, or like the NDAA and the drones that are flying over our skies, our privacy that is completely gone, our Constitution that is gone, the people who are lost and spiritually lost, especially I would rather reach out to one person who's spiritually lost and be able to make a difference than overturn half of these crazy laws. And that's what our focus really needs to be on now, because we can't change the way things are going. This was, as I said in the beginning of the show, this is all written in the Bible. Black and white. It's spelled out for us. Right, all the truth is right there. But and we're seeing it happening. Today.
That's right. And as I mentioned too over the weekend about watching the Israel bomb Syria in Damascus, and seeing this firsthand, and knowing that this is a step in the pathway of a global conflict of World War III, knowing that this is biblical in nature. And where Joe and I talked about this, and I'll make this announcement here now, as I alluded to at the beginning of the show. Folks, what we are intending on doing, and we are working very hard at the details of this, but we will do this. Remember back in the 1979, the hostage crisis, Nightline was born out of the hostage crisis. And for 444 days, Nightline had America Held Hostage Day 29, America Held Hostage Day 45, and on and on and on and on and it went. But that said, what Joe and I are attempting to do, or will do, and will expect to roll out this week, is a fourth hour of this show, not exactly contiguous. In other words, not connected, and not a fourth hour right Not, for
That's an
example,
extra hour a day I
a
need to
separate
spend with
hour.
you.
Right, because I just love see your face here across the glass here in the studio.
I'm gonna need to go get a prescription of some antidepressants. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm excited about this.
Well, right, and it's going to be called the Hagmann and Hagmann Report Dayside, essentially tomorrow's news tonight. And what we are going to do is, and this has not been 100% decided, but perhaps beginning at 11:15 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 15 minutes following the end of our 3 hours, we'll do an hour show committed to only the Middle East and everything from the Middle East through the South China Sea, essentially where it's daylight at the time that we're talking. So many people that we've got a lot of listeners from the Middle East through Indonesia. So where it's dark here, it's daylight there. Things are happening. Business is taking place during that time. Except, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, you have to wait until the next day to really understand or to really find out what's going on in that part of the world. So we are planning to launch the Hagmann and Hagmann Report Dayside, a 1 hour program that will cover the dayside part of the world when it's night here in the Western Hemisphere. And that is, we hope to roll that out this week. That's our announcement. And it's going to be, once again, committed to nothing but Middle East and Middle East news, war news, news in the South China Sea, that area. And that we could expect somewhere this fourth hour to probably be from 11:15 to 12:15 or 11:30 to 12:30, but it'll be a fourth hour. Again, it will not be immediately. That is, it's not going to flow from hour 3 to hour 4. It's going to perhaps be on a different network altogether, and we'll see how that goes. The actual architecture, the structure of the show, is being decided and should be by noon tomorrow or 1 tomorrow afternoon Eastern Time be decided, and then from there we'll have a start date, perhaps the middle of the week.
Yeah, and another advantage of doing this is we probably will be doing this on a different venue, and we'll be able to test out this other venue and see how it runs and operates. And
that's true, but most importantly for the listeners, if you have a son, a daughter, a mother, father, aunt, uncle, whatever, in the military, over in Afghanistan, Iraq, you want the news. You want to know what's going on there right now. I don't care if it's 11:30 at night or midnight. You don't want to wait until tomorrow. You want to know what's going on. So we are going to provide you with tomorrow's headlines tonight during that 1 hour, and it's going to be exclusive to the daylight side of the planet. Hence the name, the Hagmann and the Hagmann Report Dayside. So that's going to be a separate endeavor that we're going to do. So it's and more about that on our website at HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. More about that will be unveiled shortly. It's not up there yet today, but it will be as the nuts and bolts are tightened and fixed, and everything is etched in the stone here the next 48 hours. We're excited about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're coming up against the break. I'm going to hit some news here. Today, the New American published a story. UN investigators claim evidence Syrian rebels used sarin gas. The varying degrees of confidence the Obama administration has claimed for intelligence reports of chemical weapons used by the government forces in Syria may become more varied and less confident if evidence cited by a United Nations investigator is substantiated. Reuters reported from Geneva on Sunday that one of the members of the UN team looking into human rights violations in Syria's 2-year-old civil war said the evidence pointed to the use of sarin gas by rebel forces.
Now, on October 8th of last year, I wrote, let me just double check this here. I wrote the article, Lemmings at the Precipice of World War III. And in that article, which you posted in the chat room, Joe, I just want to say this. I wrote the following. Ambassador Stephen, let's see, no, I'm not going to start there. For several months now, The U.S. and NATO-aligned nations have been ratcheting up the hyperbole of the threat of Assad's chemical weapons stockpile. Obama and Secretary Clinton have threatened repeatedly that if weapons of mass destruction from Syria's arsenal are used or their security threatened, in other words, if it looked like the rebel good guy, bad guys might capture a chemical weapons site from Assad's forces, it would result in an immediate need for extensive UN intervention. That's United Nations intervention. In other words, this administration is telling Assad, heads we win, tails you lose, no matter what happens. We will find a reason to bring the UN and Western troops into Syria. You might as well just accept it, accept the inevitable, and give it up.
Yep, that from your article that you wrote. When? How long ago? A couple months ago?
That was October 8th,
okay.
2012.
A year, okay. About 6 months ago, 7 months ago. But no, I don't believe the United Nations either, so I don't put stock into what they report. I don't put stock into what the media reports. But interestingly enough, The Hill came out with an article a couple hours before the New American wrote or published their article that says that the UN walks back claim chemical weapons were used by Syrian rebels. Well, that only leaves one other side that used them. They're not saying that they're walking back claims that chemical weapons were used. They're saying they're walking back claims that they were used by the rebels.
There are videos on YouTube that have been authenticated and disseminated through intelligence channels that show, and they're not easy to watch, but show people suffering from the effects of chemical weapons like sarin gas in Syria. And they're brief clips, and they're in Arabic. They're from Arabic sources, but they've been authenticated. So it does look like there's been a breach of the chemical weapons supply, which would then bring the NATO involvement and, of course, the United States involvement, widen the conflict. And once again, as I've written before, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but beep beep. I don't know what to say. Look, we've told you how this is going. Yeah, toot
the source's horn, because
actually, yeah, it's not my.
It's a combination effort. You got good people that are working with you. And
yeah, I've got to say that. Look, there are, and I kid with my source. We talk about this all the time. I said, I'll tell them. I'll say, you didn't even see your lips move when I said that, or I bet you didn't know that you were writing that article. In fact, those aren't my words. A lot of times, those are not my words. Thank God for God-fearing men and women inside the military, inside the intelligence apparatus, that are working not only to provide information at the level that they can, but working to gum up the works, to put the brakes on World War III. And I mentioned World War III. Folks, please understand, this is coming, and if you're my age and below, or look, you're going to see it in your lifetime. It's that serious. It is. Obama, Clinton, these hearings on Wednesday the 8th, we need the truth, ladies and gentlemen. We need a select committee on Benghazi, because once the truth comes out about Benghazi, not what you read in the sewage pits of websites like Democratic Underground or others. I'm trying to think of some other ones. I don't care. But look, not what you hear being spewed from the mouths of O'Donnell and Matthews and Maddow. But the honest to God truth, we need the truth to come out.
We need the truth, but we won't get it. If we got the truth, something would blow up the next day to take the attention away from the truth. But that's even saying that the truth would, and even if the truth came out and nothing blew up, nobody would be held accountable. They never are. It's the same cycle over and over.
I got to say this too, Joe. I've been getting reports. We're going to talk about this probably on tomorrow's show, and we are lining up some fantastic guests, by the way, for the next 10 days, over the next 10 days. But before, I'm not going to say who or what, but we are getting emails about a Boy Scout event taking place and about drills, correspondent drills with this event. We're looking into this. We will inform you more about this. In other words, what the people emailing us are saying is, look, you have to put your eyes on this event, keep your eyes on this event, because have we not seen every time that there's, not every time, but many times where there's a drill, it goes live. And once again, are we just crazy? Of course not. Do we have the right to question this? Yes, we do. And is it logical to question this? Is it unpatriotic to question this? No, it's not. We demand, and we expect from every person the truth. And if we don't get it, then
life will go on. And
well,
no, seriously,
yeah, I'm glad you went in there with that.
What? Nothing will happen either way, in my opinion, and except maybe people getting hurt who do the right thing and telling the truth. We'll be right back, folks. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Stay with us.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilida Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
If you love pineapple as much as I do, I've got some great news for you. You're going to love this offer from Freeze Dry Guy. For the month of May, Freeze Dry Guy is offering the finest quality freeze-dried pineapple, a case of 6 number 10 cans yielding 114 servings at a special introductory price. First quality freeze-dried pineapple grown and packed with nothing added. This healthy treat works wonders with salad. It's great for snacking, hiking, hunting, camping, and for adding to your food storage program. And please note that Freeze Dry Guy's foods will store on your shelf for decades. Order now and get free shipping to your front door within the lower 48 states. This special introductory price is good until May 31st. For more information and a free complete product list, go to freezedryguy.com or phone 866-404-3663. FreezeDryGuy.com, 866-404-3663.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 3 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Apologize for that. A little miscue here from, I thought we were going to open with a clip of a very important clip, by the way, that was emailed to us by probably 200 people.
You missed you were supposed to do the live read of the commercial. Instead, you lean back in your chair and shut your eyes, and I'm looking at you like, what are you doing? And that's when the silence was going on. That was kind of funny.
Well, yeah, actually, I did lay back in my chair with my eyes closed, thinking.
Like just to rest real quick, take a deep breath.
Yeah, exactly. But I just want to say this, folks, if you haven't done so already, do me a favor. Go up to Granlund Firearms of British Columbia. If you're within driving distance, certainly pay them a visit. If not, you can certainly pay them a virtual visit at GranlundFirearms.com. That's GRANLUND, firearms.com. Go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, click on the link to GranlundFirearms.com, and there you will find really a hunter's paradise. Your gun stock list updated, of course. You'll find just a plethora of information. They're located, by the way, in beautiful Campbell River, British Columbia, Canada, the salmon capital of the world, if you are so inclined to drop a line in the water. Salmon's not too bad, by the way. You'll learn to like it if you do learn to like it if you have heart disease. But they're open Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from 12 noon to 7 p.m. Pacific time, that is, and Saturdays from 10 to 5. They're closed Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays, but you can still visit their website. And while you do, tell them Doug and Joe Hagmann sent you by just signing their guest book, and tell them you heard about them on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. And I got to tell you, if you're in the United States, you can actually purchase a weapon through a federal firearms license dealer, and they've got some great prices. So check them out, GrandlandFirearms.com. That's GrandlandFirearms.com. And folks, you're going to have to pay attention to this upcoming clip here.
No, we're just playing. We're just giving the audience awkward silence.
Stepped in front of the people and publicly
No, kidding.
America was a nation
Troy's
of cowards.
queuing up an audio clip.
Yeah, this was emailed to us like 200 times today.
Yeah, and Troy, you can just play it whenever.
Yeah, just let it talk over us. Envision a gentleman looking very stately back in the late 1700s or 1776, standing in front of a Constitution, talking to you during this clip. And like I said, Troy, like Joe said, Troy, anytime you'd like, go ahead and fire it off.
He was just ready, so I don't know if he had a problem finding the clip or something happened.
Powerful. Here we go.
$300 billion of a bankrupted treasury to illegal alien welfare, rewarding them for making a mockery of your laws, and they ignore you. And now, in open defiance of the overwhelming will of the people, are preparing more amnesty programs. You say, stop exporting my nation's vital industries to foreign shores, and they ignore you. You say no to using your money to bail out failed, corrupt, and greedy businesses, and they ignore you. You say implement the E-Verify system so American jobs go to American workers, and they ignore you. If your self-serving Congress were a business, they'd all be in jail now. The biggest traitors among you hold elective office. Only when they feel the almighty wrath of we the people, marching in the streets from California to New York, shouting we're mad as hell and we want our country back, will they get the message they work for you. Wake up, America. While you were playing with the toys of your consumer wealth, you lost much more than your bloated economy of living beyond your means. You lost your representative democracy. Your servants have become your masters. Taxation without representation is tyranny. But still you look to government to solve problems they created in the first place. You're sucking at the hind tit of a dead cow. Why isn't there a 3 million person We the People march on Washington? A nationwide taxpayers' revolt. Thousands of cars and trucks surrounding your nation's capital, bringing your failed government to a standstill. Democracy doesn't repress power. It unleashes it to we the people. Take it now. They dictated an economic salvation plan to you. Now it's time to stick it to them with a we the people stimulus package. Require all laws that apply to the rest of the country to equally apply to Congress. Start by first removing the elite privileges that place your non-representing representatives above you, not with you. Require all laws that apply to the rest of the country to equally apply to Congress. Repeal Congress's right to vote for their own raises. Balance the federal budget. Force your legislators to do what you now have to do. Live within your means. If you don't, you're committing national suicide. Make Congress pay into the Social Security system. They make laws for it. Now they might be interested in thinking twice before they allow 20 million illegal aliens to reap the benefits of a retirement program the legal citizens paid into all their lives. Long-term power corrupts. Limit Congress from serving more than 2 terms. That's all you give your president. Let them search for their own 401k plan instead of the gross unfairness of awarding them their full salary for the rest of their lives after only serving 1 term. Stop paying for lawmakers' insurance premiums. After all, they're only part-time employees. They might pass some laws on the insurance companies if they had to find one themselves. Throw out of office every congressman and woman who didn't bother to read the biggest spending bill in history before voting for it. With the money you save from all of the above, put it into increased salary and benefits for the men and women of the armed forces. They never fail you. Start no war unless you intend to win it. Make English the official language of America. You talk of united we stand, but do nothing to make it happen. Give every legal immigrant a chance to succeed. Not 1 cent of taxpayer money for illegal aliens. We are a nation of laws and do not reward lawbreakers. Abolish the Electoral College and put the election of the president back in the hands of we the people. Bring back universal service. 2 years in the military or 2 years in community involvement. Ensure your future. Rekindle the spirit of America. Service, honor, and duty to country. Give your young people a chance to understand they are entitled to nothing they don't earn. Wake up, America. You've allowed yourselves to become little more than cowering spectators, watching the nation your grandparents built, the richest, most powerful, most self-sufficient republic in history, with the highest standard of living any nation ever achieved, now in the middle of the greatest unprecedented decline in modern history. The world's only superpower can't defend its borders, balance its budget, win its wars, manufacture its own products, or protect its own currency. Your total government debt obligation in the next several years is approaching the gross domestic product of the entire world. You've diminished the future of your children, grandchildren, and 10 more generations of Americans. On September 11, 2001, 300 million Americans put aside what divided them and rallied around what united them. You proudly flew your flags, wore T-shirts that said, "These colors don't run." Then your leadership told you to do nothing. Let your professional army do the fighting. Perhaps you learned to do nothing too well. 233 years ago, the silent majority in Boston got fed up with taxation without representation and held a little tea party to prove the anger of we the people is on the march. It started the first American Revolution. Now it's time to start the second American Revolution. Take an envelope, put a tea bag inside, simple, seal it, and send it to your non-representing representatives in Congress. They'll get the idea. We're mad as hell and we want our country back. Look in your mirror. There's your leader. Phone your talk radio host. Call for a tax protest. Set your internet communities on fire with the idea. But if you decide to do nothing again, then buy a gun. You'll need it. My name is Thomas Paine. Don't give up hope, America. Your country needs a new greatest generation. Answer the call. Get into the fight. It's a good time to be a patriot. The Second American Revolution has just begun.
You want answers? I think I can tell you one. I want the truth. You can't handle the
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 3 of this May 6th edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We're going to be opening the phone lines. Give us a call if you want to chime in at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. And I'm going to find a link for the audio that was just played. That was something my father found, or you said somebody sent it to you?
Yeah, about 200 different emails that I've gotten here today. I don't know where it appeared. But,
it's called We the People Stimulus Package, and I'll post a link in the chat now. Yeah, in the video, there's a guy who looks like he wears one of those white wigs, and
yeah, I mean it's supposed to be. Didn't they say Thomas Paine?
Yes,
I missed the edge. Yeah, it's you don't have to necessarily. There's a few things that maybe might not sit right with you, but you get the idea, the spirit behind this. Look, they work for us. The people in D.C. work for us. Your representatives work for you.
Technically, that's what the law says or said.
Now, they're either going to continue or start working for us again, toe the line, or we are going to have a civil war. And I'm not asking for that. That's an observation. If you look at how many people out there are upset. And one thing, I don't know whether you saw this show, we didn't talk about this at all before the show or any show prep at all about this. Did you see where Bill Maher Bill Maher, whatever his name is, the atheist, I believe he is.
Bill Maher, the HBO host of
Yeah,
show on
yeah.
HBO, talking. Are you going to say about what he said about Boston?
No.
Because he came out and said that it looked like a police state, which kind of
Well, you know what?
struck me
Maybe
funny because this is a guy
right.
who wanted and called for the higher taxes on the rich. The people need to pay their fair share. Then started complaining when he was getting taxed more.
You know what? Maybe. Let me just type this in here. By the way, we don't, folks. As a rule, this is we've got very few rules for the Hagmann report, but we don't. Number one, we don't use Google as a verb. Okay, so don't say, well, Google it. No, we don't. We don't use that as a verb, but go ahead and search it. But who said the Second Amendment, as it relates to tyranny, who called that quaint? Was that? I have to search for that. Bill Maher. Yeah, ridiculous. Quaint to think that the Second Amendment can protect from tyranny. HBO host Bill Maher and MSNBC host Lawrence O'Donnell, our favorite whipping boy, seemed to agree Friday night that it's ridiculous for Americans to think that the Second Amendment can protect them from tyranny. Now, in a kind of twisted sort of way, they're right, because, again, you have to look at this from the viewpoint of, if you have a battalion if you got a battalion of military and paramilitary men coming through your front door, and you're sitting there with a .22 pistol, you're not going to fend them off unless you've got the grace of God and a few of his angels right there. But so in that way, I understand that perspective, but I don't agree. I mean, that's as far as the agreement with them goes. Bill Maher said, I believe, Bill Maher said this: can we get to, first of all, how ridiculous it is for people to think that the Second Amendment protects them from tyranny? Didn't Waco solve that? We just had the anniversary a couple of weeks ago. Remember Waco? You know what they had in Waco? They had, this according to Bill Maher, like 1.9 million rounds of ammunition, and they had 50 caliber machine guns. They had grenades. What did the government have? Everything else. The winner and still champion, the United States government. So I understand that aspect of the argument, but that's as far as my agreement, even as tenuous as that agreement might be, goes to Bill Maher. The United States, Lawrence O'Donnell, of course, he had to say, the United States is long past the point of necessary rebellion. Oh, really now? Does that go with your display of garbage? That's the only way I can describe it, about how Boston was not on lockdown and how Ron Paul lied about what happened in Boston and in Watertown. Is that he said this, which just made my blood pressure just go up. Gun ownership is a minority activity. The rate of gun ownership is declining significantly. That's why the NRA is pushing this so hard. This is according to Lawrence O'Donnell. Yeah, okay, that's why during the last 5 years we had more people buy weapons and ammunition than at any other time in history. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up. Sorry for even bringing it up, but I thought those words were just utterly ridiculous when I heard them. What else is the Second Amendment for?
Deer hunting.
Quail hunting, duck hunting.
For police and any international force that wants to have guns and come in here and use them.
Yeah, of course.
No, really, that's what they say, and they mean it. When Cuomo goes on his rant, when you don't need 10 bullets to kill a deer. Do you think he believes it, or do you think he's saying what he's told to say?
I think,
because I think Bloomberg and Cuomo kind of believe it and buy into it. I think they are little tyrants and very deceived at the same time. I think they have a sense that they are trying to do good. At least I hope they do. If not, then they're pure evil. I guess I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, but.
Well, you have to ask the question: how can humans create within their own minds such inconsistencies that really form the basis of rational and irrational thought at the same time? That there's a level of self-deception, I believe, that is taking place, and the human mind is that of a self-deceiving animal, if you will. I mean, deception, duplicity, sophistry, delusion, hypocrisy are foundational products of human nature in its natural, untutored state. So, to answer your question, I don't know. How's that? I don't know. I think that they're working on talking points, Bloomberg, that is, and others like Cuomo, and others like Michael Moore,
also furthering their own political careers.
Exactly, or personal agendas, and it's just to me, I just think that the argument's pretty fallacious.
It'd be like me becoming president, and I don't like I don't know, aluminum siding, and I'm gonna start with making everybody who has aluminum siding remodel their house within 60 days or pay a fine. Obviously, this is just some stupid example, but look at Bloomberg saying you can't have a drink, you can't buy a drink of pop that is more than 16 ounces. It's kind of the same thing in a way. The same level of control and manipulation and the power and the control are what it is.
Well, it's insanity, because if we allow, and we have allowed, our elected officials, elected people dictate to us what we can drink, what we can ingest, and how much, in what quantities. And as you mentioned before, I mean, my goodness, the toilets, how much water they can consume, and others. I mean, look, it's ridiculous, the level of control, and it's all to condition us to accept more control until such time as we have no choice. That's the end game here. The end game is us being completely subjugated. We're going to be subjects. We're not going to be citizens, but subjects. And if that doesn't bother you, and you have children, shame on you, because you're leaving your children a mess, and you better clean it up. Or, you know what? You better be responsible in helping and assisting in the cleanup of this, because it's our God-given duty, I believe, not to allow our children to inherit a mess. And this is exactly what they're inheriting, and I feel bad. I really do. We have to work together to fix this. And now that I'm on kind of a rant too, I just want to ask folks, we just had a weekend, and maybe you had a payday. Have you taken any steps at all this weekend? Have you taken a little baby step or two or three or four to prepare? Put some extra food in the pantry, extra couple of canned goods in the pantry. It doesn't take much, but get in the habit of making some preparations. Even think about this, even tonight. Look around your house, or whenever you're hearing this broadcast, look around your home. How many flashlights do you have? Do you need some flashlights? Pick up a flashlight if you don't have one, or two or three or four. Pick up a flashlight for every member of your household and the batteries to go with them. Do so, please. Let's just do that. And also, too, if you have pets, do think about them. Think about the responsibility, and it's a big responsibility to own a pet, dog, cat, or whatever. Prepare on their behalf as well. I just want to mention that, and
you don't have to prepare.
About that.
You don't even have to use your own money to prepare for your pets, as the government now has decided that it is going to give low-income families pet food stamps.
You know, I was hoping that that would lead into the segue. Can you folks embrace the insanity, understand, and fully embrace the insanity of this? You are kidding, right, Joe?
No. I'm looking for the article now. I thought I saved it. Let me check my other computer here.
Yeah, they actually, you, is this in the discussion phase, or is this actually in some, or in a state operative? Do we know this?
Let me look through the. I'm looking through the history now, but this was off
Okay.
of Drudge. I got this off of Drudge earlier. I thought I saved it. I guess not. Here, pet food stamp program. It's from CBS local, Dallas Fort Worth area. And let me open it.
All right, because this is pretty insane when you start getting to this level of government subsidization.
Pet food stamp program started for low-income families. There is no question that some individuals and families across North Texas and the nation have had to tighten their belts during the rough economic times. Now, one organization is focused on the pets belonging to those people. The nonprofit Pet Food Stamp Program is looking to help provide food for pets of low-income families. Organizers say the only option for pet owners is to abandon their family pet to the ASPCA or a high killer shelter. We feel that should not happen, and we should provide free pet food to prevent that decision, the high kill shelter, from happening. Founder of Pet Food Stamps, Mark Oken. So I didn't read. This is one of the articles I didn't read. I just saw the headline. So this is not a government program, but
okay, all right. Well,
but it's a nonprofit organization that could receive money, grants,
government grants,
tax exemptions.
Exactly, and we could see how that could be exploited to such an extent where I mean, it's not. See, folks, it's not a big thing. It may not seem like a big thing to you, but a death by 1,000 paper cuts. We're bleeding from orifices. From every orifice, and now they're slicing us elsewhere. I just want to chime in here. I got an email from Linda. Thank you, Linda. By the way, I'm not going to get into. Well, I'll just say this. She has information. There's going to be a simulated explosion drill at a college in Central Texas, and Fort Hood, and the city of Killeen. They're going to be in on it as well. It's going to be May 15th at about 9 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning. Keep your eyes on this, folks. Also, and we mentioned this, I believe, last week, an amusement park in Pennsylvania are going to be having a drill as well. And we know how things work. These drills go. We have to keep our eyes open.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that all these events, these terrorist attacks happen during drills. At the same time, they run so many drills that, I mean, they run multiple drills, each agency, each day of the year. So while it's hard to look at a drill schedule and figure out when something's going to happen, I think that's impossible unless you have some kind of inside knowledge. But that is one way. To pay attention to those things is definitely important, especially if it's in your area, as these 3/3 bombings, 7/7 bombings, 9/11, Boston, the latest one, all have had drills running. And it's a constant with these so-called terrorist attacks.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to give props to Pastor Randy Umberger from where we're going to be in Apex, North Carolina, June 7th, 8th, and 9th with Susan Price, priceforjustice.com. Susan Price, of course, Gold Star Mother of fallen Marine Aaron Kenneflick. Pastor Umberger writes that the threat list for tomorrow, which is the cyber attacks, the target list. We are anonymous. We don't forgive. We don't forget, and so on. The high-profile target lists include the Defense Department, the Pentagon, the government archives website, the whitehouse.mil or whs.mil, NASA or NSA, NSA NATO, FBI.gov, and the whitehouse.gov. What struck me as interesting, the largest banks of the USA, they're on this target list. Now, we know from Steve Quayle, talking with Steve Quayle and talking with V and others, that these banks could very well use the pretext of a hacking scenario to to pillage your account. And don't put it past something like this to take place. I've talked to Steve about this, and even
Are you looking at the Washington Times article?
I'm looking at a private email that was sent to me by Pastor Humberger, which thank you. But if it appears, I'm not sure if he got this from the Times or wherever, but there is a listing of banks and federal agencies that are reportedly the targets. But look, if you know this in advance, you can certainly harden certain things. But we know that other banks have, or we know that other, for example, we know that there are certain entities, for example, parts of the infrastructure that are off of the internet. They're not really internet accessible, although they're tied to the internet. Difficult to explain on a radio, very short piece of time here, but it worries me when I see a listing of banks that are pegged as potential targets in particular, because we know how fragile the economy is right now. We know that there's a definite agenda to kill the United States dollar. We know that there's an agenda to take our economy and ruin our economy. And of course, that'll affect our national sovereignty and our security and hit us at our weak economic underbelly. So I would be very, very concerned if any accounts are breached tomorrow. Not be from this anonymous group of hackers, but being used as a pretext for something else. And he might call me crazy and go ahead and do so. But you know what? The people in Cyprus have seen things they've never thought they'd ever see in their lifetime. And this is just not sitting well with me, this hacking operation.
I'm sure a lot of the listeners are just like us, and I'm checking my bank account right now to see if all $4 are still there. No,
exactly.
Seriously. But with that, we're going to go to the phones. As people have been waiting on hold patiently, if you would like to call in, 661-244-9839 is the number. We're going to go to 516 area code first, then 618. 516 up now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
I think I heard that Nathan Hale, whatever his name was, I'm sorry if I don't remember, but I think that's his name.
Nathan Leal?
I think I heard that about 3 years ago, back in 2010. And damn, when I heard that, I was living in a Muslim apartment with about 5 Pakistani families and Pakistanis down below. And I'll tell you, listening to that, they drew first blood. And I started putting on that stuff all the time and praising the Lord. Praising the Lord all the time. And He's the one true God. And I knew that they heard me. And they would be stomping. And I'd be sitting next to my baby. Every night, sleeping next to my baby. Just in case. But nothing ever happened. But soon came the eviction notice that I had to leave. Because all I would do is drop a waiter on the floor. Because they were stomping, being smart. But I dropped the weight on the floor. And that ceiling down below came just a little down. And the super came over and told me, he said, well, you knocked their ceiling down a little and it's just hanging by some nails. So I was evicted out of that place because of that. And I was listening to you people too. the Hagmanns, and I was listening to other stuff too. And I was living in another place. And then I was listening to you people, the Hagmanns, and Alex Jones. And I was listening to True News, Rick Wiles, and I was saying all things, but not loud, but just, I'm a little loud now, yeah. I'm a little loud now, but when I was in my apartment, I wasn't so loud. But they knew my political views. And these were Obama lovers. They were on the checks. And they didn't like my views, but they were hunting snakes like Obama. They were two-faced. They'd say hi and be all nice to you. And they all probably got together. They all got together probably. And they started messing with me. Messing with me like messing with my floor, trying to shake my bed.
Dave, did you switch your number and move because we called in that $500 reward for turning people in?
I sure did. I sure did.
It's funny, we were talking about you before the show.
Yeah, Dave, we were talking about you.
Was shut off.
Yeah, we were worried. We thought maybe you went underground.
I got a little different accent now. You all got to know that I lived down in Florida for about 6 years, and I don't know if I'm doing a good accent now, but I changed my accent now. I'm running, so I'm staying in my car, and I'm in a parking lot on Long Island, in Sodom and Gomorrah. Maybe Boston might be that, but man, I'll tell you, we got some good. Well, if you are gay, just come to Long Island, boy, and you could hook up with a whole bunch of stuff, boy.
Well, we're heading out to Fire Island. We're heading out to Fire Island tomorrow. To be a part of whatever.
Oh. Pack your bikinis, baby.
You're the man. Are you okay? I mean, you're in your car. You're not living in your car, are you?
I'm sleeping in my car. I don't want to say where. I'm on the island. I'm still going to church and still doing my thing. I listen to you people and I listen to everybody else, like I said. And damn, I'd rather be in my car and have nothing. But you people, the truth, the Lord, and the one true God, and have nothing but a cardboard box of it be, than to have a great big place, a mansion, a boat, and listening to all the bull of Obama, all the bull of the liberals, Bill Maher, all them, bull. That would drive me crazy. And I'm sorry if I'm loud.
Shout it from the rooftops, my friend. No, you know what, Dave? You're right. Look, it doesn't matter if you live in a mansion, if you've got a yacht. What matters is you can look at yourself in the mirror and know who you are, and be at peace with yourself, and know that you're doing the work of God, and that you've got God in you, and that's what matters.
I got people in the Catholic Church that I know that just laid on me, and I'm talking with this girl, and she says, I have some friends that are gay, and they're in the Catholic Church. They're in the church, and I said, well, that's an abomination. It's an abomination. And I didn't say it like this loud, but I said it. And she was like, God changes. This is all the bull. Oh, God changes. God don't change. And I love that man. I love that man, David Lankford, if that's the name, because I'll tell you, I got Steve Quayle and David Lankford, and I downloaded one before I got out of my apartment, and I've been listening to that, and do you know that there's a part on there where they're saying about God that you will be killed, and they will be thinking that they will be doing a service for God. And do you know at the Mass today, the priest who did the homily on the gospel actually said that was part of the gospel today, that people will actually be killed, and people doing the killing will actually be the same thing that was in it. It was unbelievable. I just listened to this today, and this was the gospel for today. And I'm thankful to have a priest like this, because he is looking, he subscribes to Glenn Beck. I'm sorry, guys, I can't tell him what to listen to, but at least he listens to something. He gets the Blaze, and they're doing the thing over there in Israel, I mean, in the Mideast, where they're killing the Christians. Glenn Beck must have did some kind of a special. I don't get it. And he's going to look at it, see if it's gross or whatever, and then he's going to decide whether to show the people in the church what's going on. But, I mean, you know, I mentioned something about that little baby that was trying to climb out of the toilet bowl with some people, and, like, the girl moved, and she had, oh, my God, and she, like, had to, like, leave away. And I'm like, well, you know, whatever, maybe you can't take it, but, I mean, what is this world coming to? I mean, you know, this is murder. It's not murder, it's premeditated murder. Premeditated murder. Premeditated murder. When a little baby is trying to get out of a toilet bowl, and you people say it's good, that it's okay. Oh.
I love you, man. Welcome. You know, you're exactly right. It is beyond comprehension that the news media has paid absolutely no attention to the Gosling trial, the Philadelphia abortion doctor, this abortion mill who would kill babies after birth, and yet not one minute of news coverage was given to this trial. What an abomination. Dave, you're absolutely 100% accurate on this. And
it's unbelievable to think of that, to think of it. It doesn't matter if you're Catholic, Christian, whatever. You have to have compassion. This is the main thing. There's Catholics that basically I don't want to know. I'd rather be with just somebody that thinks the same way, that if you're like Jesus, that's what counts. It doesn't matter what denomination you are. What doesn't matter if you go to Easter. It doesn't matter if you have a pope or anything. It's what's inside you. There's people. There was the place where I work. I'm not going to mention anything. This guy has finger polish on. He's thinking of, oh, how does this cross? Oh, the cross is going to look on me. The guy had reddish hair. He was gay, talking gay. He's going to put I said, what are you serious? You're going to put a cross on you? And you're gay? Are you serious? You got nail polish on your nails?
I got to tell you, Dave, you're absolutely right. Look, my friend, I want you to be safe out there. If you are in need,
keep my number. Keep my number just in case you have to call me in case something happens.
We will, and you keep us posted as to how you're doing, my friend. All right.
Suicide either. I said that today for the troops. And Jonathan in Afghanistan, if you're out there, I met your mother, Elizabeth. She's a beautiful woman. Jonathan, I love you. He's a sergeant over in Afghanistan doing his third tour. God bless.
And Dave, thank you very much. God bless you.
God bless you, man.
And I got to tell you, we've got an entire camp in Afghanistan who listens to our broadcast by archive, and they have to use a proxy server because they're blocked from the military from our website. Go figure. That's our military.
Yep. And it was good to hear from you, Dave. And I will be if this is your number, I will be in touch with you tomorrow. Hopefully I'll call you.
Okay. Yeah. Joe, you can do that. You're going to be in the office early tomorrow. And we're getting reports from the Poconos in Pennsylvania that they heard Dave without the radio. So
We're going to move on the phone lines here. Area code 618, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
How are you guys doing tonight? My name's Jason from Illinois.
How you doing, Jason?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I was sitting there. I was thinking this past weekend. It's just, you know, you talk to different people, and you know, you guys have a different platform to where you guys can speak over to, you know, speak on the radio and many other different areas like that. But you know, how do you? Because you mentioned earlier, you used to sit there and Doug, you mentioned that about 10 years ago or so, you didn't used to think, or basically see the things that were happening basically in the world. And what sparked, what broke you out of that shell, or what got you to see the, I guess, to see the light or so, or at least to be more aware or so, or seek the truth? What got you to, because I asked that question only because, you know, I speak with different people, usually in coworkers or this or that, or family members, and, you know, I can kind of understand in the way Jesus probably was, and, you know, he knew the truth, and, you know, most people just didn't seem to understand, and he knew the consequences that were going to happen and everything, just as, you know, kind of how we see the consequences of the things coming up in the world, and most people are just, they don't seem to understand, and you mentioned it earlier in the first hour, that, I don't know, it falls into kind of two different categories. Maybe some people just don't see, and then some people, I guess, maybe they do see, but they just don't really. Maybe they don't care. I don't know. And so, what broke you out of that, I guess, shell and everything to where you could at least search the truth?
Well, thanks for that question, and that's a good question. I have to tell you, I attribute a lot of it to God. You know, a lot of it to Steve Quayle. Him saying, "Look, you've got to take a look, and you've got to take the time to look at a few things." And it wasn't until I started reading. And I read books. I started reading books like None Dare Call a Conspiracy. And for example, being an investigator for almost 30 years, things began to make sense to me when I started asking the right questions, the proper questions, and not getting the answers I expected. It was at that point that I started saying, wait a minute, there's something here. These crazy people I hear, like Alex Jones, who's not crazy, he's right on the money on many, 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 many things. Look, you know, it's facts have proven his and others' claims of various conspiracies, and you start tugging on one conspiracy, others fall as well. I visited Fort Marcy Park not too long after Vince Foster was murdered, and of course that was back in the 90s. But I had some reservations on that. I picked up the book by oh my goodness, the name escapes me now. But nonetheless, I just started reading, started asking questions, and you know what? Prayer really guided me to different people and different answers. I guess the bottom line is you just have to stop and think. Use your God-given brain. Stop watching television. Stop reading the newspapers, just for a period of time until you can kind of deprogram yourself, and then take a look at whatever it is, the banking system, or 9/11, or pick a topic, and just look at what is being said by the media, by the government, and then look at what your own research bears out. As an investigator, my own research board. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I agree with that, and and I take that basically. I can kind of understand a little bit of it's in a way it's kind of like like the people on the Titanic. Hey, you can try to warn somebody, you can tell them to hurry up and get out of bed. The water's coming up, and you just ask them. But I always start with the simple questions. Hey, do you believe our leaders tell us the truth 100% of the time? Yeah, do you believe that they have our best interest? At heart and everything. Do you think Obama really wants nothing but the best for me and you? And so they always answer that question, no. And you answer it, how do you feel about our financial system? Do you think that, how can we pay that off? Just tell me some sort of way how we can do that. And they don't have any sort of clue and everything. They're like, listen, we ain't going to pay it off. So you warn these people, and then these are the people that I work with. Hey, I got $400,000 in my 401k, or I got this or that, and I just say, well, I pose these questions to you, and it still gets frustrating. I think in the end, it's just, you just kind of almost want to sit there and shake somebody and everything. And I'm sure maybe Jesus felt the same way and everything, or the apostle, just, hey, but maybe it is this that simple as, you just tell the truth, speak the truth of what we know and how we see things that are happening. And then basically just kind of leave it with them saying, hey, if you desire the truth, then maybe you might want to sit there and, talk with me a little bit more, or sit down and pray and everything first, ask God and everything to reveal that. Because really, I always try to come up with some sort of, logical way to, go after, if I'm talking to somebody, and because you want them to understand. But I think I kind of related to like with my ex-wife. You could make sense of it in terms of why did they do the things that they did. You know what? You can't make sense to some people. And so basically, you just got to be like Jesus, I guess, and be like Jesus and just speak the truth. And what did he do? Yep. He didn't walk around and going around and grabbing people and shaking them. He just spoke the truth. And I'm sure he got frustrated, but this is just something that I've just been realizing over the last couple of days was just, what? Maybe just it's hard not to get frustrated because you want your family and you're loving them, the people in your family and everything, and the people around you. You don't want to see them lose everything that they have, or you want them to basically be right with God. That's the most important thing. But if God gave us all a brain, if they choose not to listen, then I guess it's, it's like, what do you do if the house, if a building is burning down and your job is just to kind of go down the hallway and scream and try to help as many people as you can. But it gets a little frustrating sometimes because, you just want to try to tell them in a logical way and convince them. But you know what? I think, what you said, it almost has to start out with you have to first know God first, because if you're not willing to seek the truth and open your eyes, then there's no slick argument. There's no way I can convince you to really understand anything that I'm talking about, because, what does it say in the last days? Even the very elect and everything will be deceived. So I think that's what it falls down to. Most people will be deceived, and it's unfortunate. I'm not happy about that, but just be like Jesus, I guess, and just walk and speak the truth. And I guess myself, I got to control myself, not try to get so frustrated. It does get frustrating, but just speak the truth. And and if leave it basically as, hey, if I told you these things, and if you doubt anything that I'm saying, how about just kneel down one night and pray to God, ask Him to reveal that to you, because I don't think us as human beings we can really kind of break through that shell and and really do it without God opening their eyes. I don't think we can win any sort of slick argument or can tell them a whole bunch of facts. It's just going to bounce off them like a rubber balls.
Well, you know what? You sound like you've got your I hate to use the term act, but you've got it together. You are a very together person. You see what's going on, and you're right though. Now, as a leader of your family, you do have, we'll say, if you're married and have children, you've got some level of control where you know that we're on the deck of the Titanic. So grab the hand of your loved ones and walk slowly toward the lifeboats. Now, start doing that now, and ask them to trust you. And you know what? Some will resist, and those who resist, just at some point, maybe sit them down over coffee. But you're not going to be able to save everyone, and I think that the frustration comes in when you want to save everybody.
All we can do is really plant the seed, and they have to grow it from there.
Exactly.
That if I could eliminate all those words, that's basically what it is. Just plant the seed. But still, You still want to, do you get frustrated? But I think that's as simple as what it is. All our job is to do is not really to, if someone's not going to believe, and if they don't want to just, sit down and take 5 seconds or 10 seconds and pray to God and just say, God, please, if things kind of feel uneasy, if they're not going to take that time to at least do that, there's no way we can really help them. I mean, God has to open their eyes, and they have to at least have that spark inside of them of the Holy Spirit, just a little bit and everything, just to be able to take 10 seconds and say, God, hey, is this what this guy is saying is true? Is this, is the world kind of, not in a shaky situation? Do I need to get things, ready for my family if I can? And but if they don't have that, if they don't even at least have that 10 seconds to kneel down and pray, I guess they'll just, unfortunately,
Well, we have a plaque here in our office that quotes Isaiah 62:6 that says, I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day or night. Ye that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence. Basically, as watchmen, we're charged with attempting to warn others of the coming calamities. We have to warn others. It's up to them to listen or not to listen, and hopefully, they will listen. And what's going to be funny is as things progress, and they will progress incrementally, people are going to be turning to you for answers because you've warned them initially. So they're going to be looking for leadership from you. Fulfill that leadership position with love and with understanding and patience. The same patience that Steve Quayle, for example, used on me years ago. Just do it with love and of course the proper attitude and handling. And I think we just have to get past what we're headed for, to live for another battle, another day. And there's blessings that will be bestowed upon us if we do that in that fashion. That's my belief anyway. And I give you a lot of credit, my friend, for being in the front lines, because we're all in the front lines, aren't we? Trying to tell people, saying, look, man, things aren't right.
We all get mocked at and laughed at, and I'm the guy who called you last week about the guys putting that nasty book and everything down from me. You just and all you're trying to do is, and listen, I get nothing from it. I don't want them to go to my church if they don't want to go to my church, or that, and I just want them to just call out in the name of, in the middle of the night. You can do it in the middle of the night. Just get on your hands and knees, wherever you're at in your house, wherever you're at, and just say, God, help me, please. There's a prodigal son story and everything. I always refer that to my son and everything. It's just, it has to be, people try to make it so difficult and confusing. It should be that simple, and it should be that simple. And if you have your open heart to that, then I guess you'll be okay. But I just did want to make one more quick little point, which was, and I always refer this to whenever I'm speaking with anybody, and I believe it's in Matthew. I believe it is. But you said that generation will not pass away, and I believe it says Jesus was responding back by saying, by no means that generation will not pass away. So that means, I always equate that to, hey, definitely that generation will not pass away. It's not, it means a little bit more. You know what I'm saying?
You mean in the context of we're going to see the tribulation and such?
Well, no, just in the context of just some people think we have more time, and and let's just say some people will say, oh, okay, what's a generation or this? Let's just say 40 years. Let's just say that. I don't know. But Jesus' response was, by no means that generation will not pass away. And that means to me, listen, it's not going to be that whole generation. It's going to be a little bit sooner. So don't think that you have so much time on your hand.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Context.
Yeah, exactly.
And
The
90
Lord's
seconds.
generation or time of a generation, is different from what we think is a generation, and it could be a different whole time period for this time.
But I think the caller is
Or that
exactly
time
right.
appointed.
Though I people think we have a lot of time. We don't know how much time we have left. Caller, we're at the end of the show. God bless you. Thank you for your call. Great call as always. Keep the faith, my brother. Thank you, Joe.
God bless and keep safe.
All right, Joe. We're at the end of the program already. If you can imagine.
60 seconds.
In that fourth hour, once we start doing that, it'll probably go by just as fast.
Yeah, and folks, just very quickly, we are working on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report Dayside, meaning the Dayside of the Planet. Tomorrow's headlines today, the news of the other side of the planet, very specific to that area. It's going to be a very, very specific program of just news, no calls, no interaction, just filled with news and information that you need to know. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I want to thank all the new listeners all across the world, wherever you might be. God bless you.
Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you for using Blog